Good morning. It is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I would be Glenn Clark. He would be Griffin Bass. We're with you for however long we feel like it. That's the way that it goes. Today I don't much feel like it because the Orioles have lost 4 straight. You certainly don't blame Cade Povich last night. He was serviceable. We do a bit where we move the goalposts. Like, we move the goalposts for a lot of things, and I get it. Like, with Cade Povich, because he's still only making his 4th Major League start, you kind of find yourself saying, oh, that was a really good start. Well, no, it's a really good start if you're giving it multiple qualifiers. But he put 8 guys on base and didn't get through 6 innings. It's not a really good start. It's a serviceable start. It's a... You got to find a way to win that game when you get that start from your 5th starter. That's what it is, and it's fine to say that. That part is fine to say, but we do a lot of goalpost moving. Cade Povich wasn't really good last night. He was serviceable. He got hit. Boy, did he get hit. But he did cut down on the walks. Walked one guy early on, and not after that. The problem being, he got hit. The real issue, of course, as we all know, the Orioles had the offense working early on in the game, and then nothing. Just hanging out, enjoying the view. And, that's the bummer, as we keep talking about the problem that I'd say that's the bummer. I also think it's the reason why we're all capable of saying, like, hey, we're not going to panic too much. You want to say that the Orioles' offense is a little streaky? Yeah, I'm fine with that. That plays. I'm not panicked that the Orioles have gone 3 games where their offense has struggled. That's going to occur. And it's disappointing, but... Again, that happens. It really isn't the end of the world to me. Ironically, the thing that I was losing my mind about early on in the season has continued to improve. The Orioles' on-base percentage, which was as low as 300 at one point, is back up to 312. That's not great, but it's moved them into the top half of baseball. That's not nothing. I think we have to acknowledge that. Sometimes you have nights. Sometimes you have games. Sometimes you have weekends. I'm more willing to say that this is a blip on the radar. And if you want to have a conversation about how there have been multiple blips on the radar during the course of the season, sure, there have. Is it possible that that will end up being the Orioles' undoing in the playoffs? Yes, 1,000% that's possible. Is it part of the reason why... They probably have been in the market for another bat? Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. But is it my bigger concern? Not a chance in hell. It is much lower on my list of concerns. Concerns, starting pitching, bullpen, then we can talk about offense. It's bummer, and it's not a game that you should lose. No question. Not a game that you should lose. But such is life. That's the way it goes, and now you got to try to snap a 4-game losing streak tonight. The good news is the pitching, like Tanner Bybee, we knew on paper was going to be a problem. He's been really good this season, but the next couple of guys the Guardians are going to throw, Logan Allen, Carlos Carrasco, have not been good this season. So you hope that the Orioles can take advantage of that. Tonight, Logan Allen versus Cole Irvin. And teams do lose. I know, again, we've been very fortunate since the arrival of Adley Rutschman. There have not been many losing streaks. A year ago, they didn't have a 4-game losing streak until like September, if I remember correctly. And then I think famously that was when everybody was panicked. If you remember, we thought the wheels were coming off. They were about to lose the division. everything was going to hell, and then they turned around and they took those 2 games over the weekend against the Rays, including the one where they clinched the playoff spot, and then they went down to Houston and won a couple of games, and we were like, oh, they're going to win the World Series.
I feel like there was one more 4-game losing streak.
Was there another 4-game
I feel like it was
losing
around this
streak
time, too, like the end of June.
I feel like somebody wrote something recently about how they've had late June issues. And as Mike Bordick pointed out yesterday, it is totally plausible that just the totality of the schedule has caught up to them. That's not an excuse. You don't get to hide behind that. You don't get to say, hey, we're emotionally drained. This is baseball. Yes, the schedule has done you no favors, but you got to play the games. You don't just sort of get to say, hey, guys, time out. Hey, Pete, can we take a break? Doesn't work that way. You got games all week. You got to figure out a way to get it going again. And, we'll see. That's all I can say. We'll see. In the meantime, they're mired in a 4-game losing streak, and that happens. As people have pointed out, in 1983, we did the entire thing last year. Remember when we were doing
Imagine if that happens.
The 40th anniversary of the 83 World Series and the multiple 7-game losing streaks they had during the course of that season, and yet they still figured out a way to win a World Series. And I get the 1983 baseball was different than it is in 2024, and I get the culture is different in 2024, but the point does remain the same. It is baseball. You can do your John Sterling. That's baseball, Susan. You can do that all you want, and it is. Like, it feels like we're being dismissive of the problems, but no, we're being practical about the way that a baseball season goes. We can talk about the issues. And we do. They got to get more pitching. Have to. The bats can't all fall asleep at the same time. Except for Heston Kjerstad, obviously, who looked pretty good in his first game back.
They did lose 4 in a row from June 27th to July 1st.
And who was it against?
They lost 2 to the Reds, and then they lost 2 to the Twins before winning the Sunday series finale against the Twins.
So they won the first game against the Reds, then lost 2, and then lost.
Yeah, including a 1-0 loss on a Saturday to the Twins on Hawaiian Shirt Night, too.
I don't remember that at all.
I don't know why I don't remember that either.
I guess the Reds and the Twins are fairly nondescript.
Yeah, I remember the Twins game because I was actually at one of those.
There you go.
Yeah, I was at the one they lost 11-7.
So it was your fault. All right. Now we've solved that.
I had a
problem.
horrible record last year.
Were they wearing the City Connect jerseys?
No, it was a Wednesday. So.
All right.
They just didn't win. They didn't win in the Connect, so they didn't win when I was there.
Yeah.
I think I went like 3-9 or something.
You were
including the playoff game.
Well, we can't blame you. Can't blame you for last night. Can't blame you for that.
I got bad news.
What?
I'm going tonight.
Oh, you son of a bitch!
I've been much better this season. I think I'm like 3 or 4-1. I think.
We'll see.
So, including opening day.
Yeah. Coming up on the program in just a few minutes, Anthony Castrovince, MLB Network, MLB.com. We'll talk to him about what he sees in the Birds. Also, Jon Meoli, our buddy from the Baltimore Banner. We'll talk some Orioles with him later on in the program. The great Donté Green, of course, Towson Catholic legend, R.I.P. Towson Catholic. And Syracuse star turned NBA veteran. First-round pick. In what year would that have been for Donté Green? 2007? 2000? Donté Green's got to be pushing 40 now. He's got to be. No, 2007 too early. Maybe 2009.
He was drafted in 2008.
I was all over it. God, I guessed every year but the correct answer. First round pick.
Speaking of the 2008, go ahead and name the the
2008 NBA draft. Well, that wasn't the one that we were talking about the other day.
No, we did 07.
We did 07, yeah. We did 07 because it was the
08.
Florida. That was how that came up. So 08 then would have been.
So you would have been back here by then.
I would have been about to move. I would have been this 08 draft would have been the last one I did. In fact, I can tell you as a fact, it was my last night on the air in Phoenix. Was the 08 draft.
Really?
Yep. 100%. My last night on the air.
Almost a year ago, June 26th, 2008. Almost a year ago. So or not a year.
I was going to say a year.
Hold on, I got to do the math. 16 years from tomorrow.
16 years from tomorrow. Yeah, that maths. So, here's the problem with trying to remember that coverage. This is a straight shoot.
You were just...
I got hammered.
Nice.
Straight up got hammered. All right, it was my last day, and
I mean, that sounds like a great way to spend your last day in the air.
Drunk. And because they told me I didn't, they were throwing a party for me at Dave & Buster's.
Sweet.
A going away party.
They have Dave & Buster's out west?
They told me, yeah, in fact, that back then they had them there but didn't have them.
Oh,
no,
really?
there was one in Philly. That was the only one that was in this part of the.
It's like an East Coast destination then.
So they were like, look, man, you can do your show, and then afterwards we'll have you do some pop-ins during draft coverage, but you don't have to anchor draft coverage. And I was like, hell yeah, I'm all in. And so then they were bringing me. We did the show from a sports bar of some sort, and like the place found out it was my last day, and they were feeding me. I mean, like it was I have no recollection of anything from. Apparently, we got kicked out of the Dave & Buster's.
Sounds like
That's
you did your last
thing
day
that
right.
occurred.
Sounds like you did it right.
My final day in Phoenix. Got kicked out of the Dave & Buster's. I remember. Oh God, I can't remember who I could tell you that I wanted the Suns to get at that point. I can't remember anything about this draft coverage.
It was a good draft.
Was
Yeah.
all right. Well, hang on. That was that was coming off the heels of the Kansas-Memphis title game. So that must have been Derrick Rose as the number 1 pick.
Yeah, that is
All
correct.
right, so
Derrick
that's
Rose
probably the length of what I'm going to get.
to the Bulls.
I don't remember.
The Heat drafted second.
The Heat drafted second. Nope.
Wait, this is the weird thing where the Timberwolves and I don't know if it was Timberwolves or Memphis.
Yeah,
drafted
the
third.
NBA draft sucks,
Yeah,
man.
it does.
F the NBA draft. No, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. We got other things to do. We're not
Michael
doing
Beasley, O.J. Mayo rounded out the top
Ugh.
3. But then you had Russell Westbrook go
it.
fourth.
Oh, okay.
overall.
All right.
Then Kevin Love, 5th overall. So the Timberwolves drafted 5th.
All right.
Eric Gordon top 7. Danilo Gallinari.
Oh, Danilo.
Is that how
Old.
it is?
I don't. Danilo.
Brooke Lopez went 10th overall. To
Oh,
the
well, and
Nets.
Robin Lopez went to the
Correct.
Suns, right?
15th overall. Was
Yeah,
Robin
Lopez to go to the Suns. And I remember they had me call back. Oh God. Oh, I don't want to think about this. God, have you ever found the audio of this
All right, I'll look for
draft
it.
cut? No, you're never gonna find it.
It's got to be out.
No, it was KDUS, the Fan 1060 KDUS in Phoenix draft night. You're never gonna find this. But they had me do a phoner after the Suns pick, and I was hammered. I mean, utterly hammered. And I don't remember. I think I decided I was gonna do a bit, like when I'm like, I'm gonna say I hate it, and I didn't care. Like, and I just made, and I think I was trying to make bad jokes, and they definitely gave me the dump. They said, "All right, well, that was Glenn Clark."
That was his final time. Coming on the stage.
Bad.
Roy Hibbert, 17th
bad.
overall. JaVale McGee
whatever,
drafted
Roy
by the
Hibbert.
Wizards.
Yeah.
What is Roy Hibbert up to? He was in Parks and Rec a lot.
That's true. That's a good point because he was a Pacer. That's a very good point. Donté Green was in that draft.
He was
though.
with the
stand by
Sixers
it.
as recent as 2022.
I don't remember that.
No, coaching.
Whatsoever. Yeah,
Coaching.
okay. That's a very different
Yeah.
thing. All right, stop. We're not doing this.
All right.
No matter how much
Serge
you want.
Ibaka.
The point is that Donté Green's going to join us. He's coming back home on Saturday. I don't know that Donté
28th,
Green.
28th overall.
There's a better chance because he's 36 that at some point he managed to find his way into a game. I don't know that he's ever played.
Star of Hulu series Clipped, DeAndre Jordan.
What pick was?
35th overall.
Wow, DeAndre Jordan was 35th. That was a hell of a pick.
Oh, Luke Mbah Moat.
Oh yeah, from UCLA. Yeah. I feel like he was a guy that I liked in that draft that I wanted. Maybe I don't know. I definitely wanted Chalmers. I remember that because he hit the shot right. And
Goran Dragic.
Goran Dragic. All right. But yeah, Chalmers was a guy that I really wanted because I was enamored with him because he hit the shot that saved Kansas in the title game and allowed them to end up coming back and win. Didn't he hit a big one for the Heat too?
Yeah, in one of those.
Yeah, in one of those finals, he had a big shot. I think he did. Whatever. Ray Allen obviously hit the biggest 3 for the Heat to save them, but I could have sworn that Chalmers hit one at some point. Whatever. Moral of the story is Donté Green.
34. I guess he was short.
I liked him. But also, I don't even remember what pick the Suns had that year
15.
because that's the pick they took, but I don't know what they had. Like, this is the NBA draft, bro.
From Atlanta, so
they-
Atlanta.
That was the year they lost to the Spurs in the playoffs. I'm just going to guess they didn't start with the 15th pick. I'm going to assume they started with a later pick in that draft. But I don't know that either because, my God, I was drunk. Just drunk. It was reckless.
24th would have been the pick.
24th was
Where
the
Serge
pick
Ibaka
of that.
went.
Oh, Serge Ibaka was a nice man. That would have been a nice pick. Would have been a nice pick. All right. So Donté Green joins us later. You jerk.
I love talking about the old NBA draft.
Um,
or any really old draft.
Nothing really to discuss as far as our topic du jour from yesterday because the Orioles didn't do the bold thing. They did the easy thing, and they DFA'd Nick Maton. And so at the moment, Colton Cowser and Heston Kjerstad are both on the team. Heston Kjerstad, as we talked about with Mike Bordick, did indeed patrol left field last night. Will that be the story? My frenemy, Rob Shields from Utah Street Report, who likes to fight with me on Twitter, but it's fun. We have fun here. Was going on about, hey, well, you could just play both of them and sort of split time between them, and that wouldn't be the end of the world. And no, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I don't think it's quite that simple either. I don't know how much that allows either of them to get going. And to say, well, hey, you could rotate off days for the other guys, for O'Hearn, Santander, particularly Santander and Mountcastle, because they're everyday players, so you could kind of rotate. You wouldn't ever really want Ryan O'Hearn to have an off day against a righty. That would make no sense whatsoever. But to say, hey, Mountcastle plays every day, Santander plays every day, it wouldn't be the end of the world to give those guys off days, against a righty to allow both Kjerstad and Cowser to be in the lineup. I guess Mullins would be in that conversation too. Sure. Yeah. I mean,
so
it's also tougher because if you're including Mullins in the conversation, then you're having Cowser play center, and now you got Kjerstad and Santander and limited range on either side.
Do you play Hayes in center and then
not against Hayes? Hayes at this point, you're only
Well, he's against lefties.
He's only hitting against lefties. You just don't have – there are no at-bats for Austin Hayes to be hitting against a righty right now. I mean, who in the world would you be sitting down for Austin Hayes to be hitting against a righty? Like, he is only hitting against lefties.
Righty lineup. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's the predominant – like, that's the issue.
Yeah.
Their lefty lineup, they don't have enough guys. That was, again, my buddy Rob yesterday was like, well, they could have sent Hayes down. I'm like, no, they couldn't. That is not in the conversation. They don't have enough right-handed bats. They can't do it. This is they're square peg round holing it as it is. They're doing the bit where they're going to carry. They 100% have one too many left-handed hitters right now, and this is with Kostowers even being out of the equation, right? Like they have one too many left-handed hitters, and they're just sort of saying we're going to figure it out. And again, that's fine, but it's fine. It's not really a problem because, like, the pitching is really a problem, but it's a problem. This is not optimal roster construction. Somebody has to sit. They don't have a choice. Someone has to sit when they're facing a righty. And it's easy to say, well, Colton Cowser struggled, so he can – okay, but is that good for Colton Cowser to be sitting when you want him to work out of it? And they just say, well, maybe everybody takes a turn and you rotate. You don't ever want Ryan O'Hearn to be out of the lineup. It would be insane for Ryan O'Hearn to not be in the lineup against a righty. Insane. So now you're turning to Santander, who's been, arguably your hottest hitter for the last couple of weeks. Or Mountcastle. And again, you're square peg round holing it no matter what you do. And that's fine. Again, this is not a real problem. This is a first world problem, but it's still a problem, and it'll be interesting to see how it goes. If Heston Kjerstad is playing like he was in the lineup last night but ain't in the lineup again, and I got to think about who they're facing. So now they're facing a lefty tonight, right? So what are you doing here?
So
Hayes is obviously going to be in the lineup tonight.
So do you put him in center if you want to try and give Kjerstad or O'Hearn a shot against lefties?
So it's been
and then throw one of them in left.
It was pointed out to me that Kjerstad in the lower levels of the minor leagues actually hit a little bit against lefties this season at AAA. Not as I think he was hitting like 250 against lefties, which by the way is not like that. Even that, if you could replicate that at the major leagues, probably makes you an everyday player. But that's 250 at AAA. I don't know that you can assume that can be replicated at the major leagues. But if you want to give him a shot, I guess I'm listening. It's probably as DH and not in left field. Like I just don't think that you want to have Kjerstad and Santander with Hayes in center. I don't think you want to do that. I think it would be Hayes in left, keep Mullins in center, and then Santander in right, you sit O'Hearn and let Kjerstad DH if you want to give him a shot against lefties. And I'm not, although I guess, yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I'm not. I gotta think about this, but I don't think that's it. Just to get him some regular at bats and make sure he's playing as he's up here. I'm willing to consider this possibility. I guess I gotta think through everyone that you have to have in the lineup against a lefty. So you have to have Mateo in the lineup against a lefty. You have to have Arias in the lineup against a lefty. So you also run into that, like, does one of them need to DH because you don't want to take Westberg out of the lineup? Like, you got to think through this and see if there's a spot even available. God, wasn't I just saying that you have too many guys, or you don't have enough guys? You don't have enough righty bats? I guess that is the reality, is you want Westberg, Arias, Mateo all in the lineup against righties. So you don't really have the DH spot available. So this goes back to your question, is do you sit Mullins?
My fantasy team doesn't want him to sit.
Well, if he's going to perform, yeah. I mean,
if he gets on base, he's going to steal base.
That part is true.
That's
You're right about that. I think the question really is about, are you comfortable with an outfield alignment of Kjerstad and Santander on the other side of Hayes? And I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. We'll find out. Today's show is brought to you by your local Toyota dealer, which is a proud sponsor of County Sports Zone. Yes, high school sports season is over, but that doesn't mean there isn't a lot of content churning over at countysports.zone. County Sports Zone will let you know about coaching changes, will help get you ready for high school football season. All of that can be found at countysports.zone, which is proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. Let's talk some more Orioles this morning. Mired in a 4-game losing streak. And this man, whenever he's on MLB Network, he sort of goes over the freak-out factor. And so we're going to have to figure out if we should be freaking out about the Orioles losing 4 in a row. He is Anthony Castrovince, and he's with us now here on GCR. Anthony, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's always good to chat with you. Thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes for us this morning.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, we had the post Kyle Bradish, the Orioles were on the freakout factor last week. So I don't think it's gotten any better since then.
No, it sure hasn't. And that's the thing. Like to me, the strange part about having this conversation is the freakout is still about the starting pitching for me, but the last 3 games they've scored 4 runs total over the last 3 games. So it's a weird feeling where the truth, if we really broke it down, is the bats have just gone quiet for a few days. I think we all believe that happens. This is baseball. You sometimes go through stretches like that even when you're a good lineup. No reason to panic. I do still think that the bigger freakout is you don't really seem to have the starting pitching that can win you a World Series at this point.
I mean, things happen in baseball. You just got to get to October and anything can happen. We all, yada, yada, yada. But, yeah, I mean, I am pretty concerned about the state of the pitching staff. Obviously, it's been a tough run here of late, but it's, whereas with the bats, you could just kind of feel like you just kind of shrug it off as just any team goes through that over the course of a season. When you've given up, 16, 35, 41, 40, 45 runs in 7 games, if my math is right off the top of my head. I mean, that's, no offense is going to keep up with that. They did try their best with a 17 and 11 there on back-to-back days against the Yankees and Astros, but there's only so much the bats can do when that is, what the pitching staff is yielding. And it's just unfortunate where they had really a great run of health on the pitching front last year until the Bautista injury, and then this year it's just been one hit after another. And it goes without saying that they're a team that's going to have to be uber aggressive at this trade deadline.
I guess that's the question. Anthony, is it one starter that they need, or okay, yep.
I mean, a minimum, right? But you never know because again, guys do step up. Things do happen. Sometimes you're better off just trying to build a super bullpen, and going about it that way because October is so different, where guys have extra rest and that sort of thing. But man, I mean, it's you just feel so much better about how they line up in a short series if they had, some more guns to work with in the front end of the rotation, So the problem, of course, is what do you go out and get because the inventory is not
right.
great. I mean, none of us were talking about Garrett Crochet and Eric Fetty going into the season. Now we're talking about them like, you would think they were Cy Young winners,
Right.
So, just pictures of that ilk. I mean, Cal Quantrill is having a great year in Colorado, which is not easy to do, obviously. Zach Eflin's in the division, Trevor Rogers, Griffin Canning. I mean, these are not names. I'm naming you like the best available starters as of today, and these are obviously not names that would have made anybody excited in April.
Oh, not
but
at
here
all.
we are.
But
That's the course of the baseball
to your point,
season.
Anthony, that's where you are. And also, this is a team that looks like it can't be that far away from letting Julio Teheran have a start. So, like, that's where they are. Anthony Castrovince is with us here on GCR. Anthony, you bring up obviously Crochet and Fetty. Like you start with the fact that like there's only a few teams that we know are definitively sellers. The White Sox are there.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about those two for the last couple of weeks here in Baltimore since the bad news started coming in about the Orioles starting pitching. I think everyone's enamored with Crochet and loves the idea of, hey, in a post-Corbin Burns world, you might be adding someone who's a top-of-the-rotation starter for the next couple of years, and that sounds really good. But the innings thing feels like it's going to be very real this season. Can you genuinely believe that Garrett Crochet can be someone that actually is going to help you win a World Series in 2024?
That's tough for me. And I don't mean to I lumped him in a category of guys where of all the guys I mentioned, he's certainly the most enticing long term. I mean, this is like, he's got some pedigree in terms of his stuff and what was expected of him going into his big league career. But you're right. I mean, practically, he blew his elbow out. He lost all of 2022. He lost the majority of 2023. He's now, converted into starting duty, and he's thriving. He's proven, he can pitch like an ace starter, but he's never pitched in the playoffs. He's never pitched a full season. So, yeah, it's a very valid question. What are you getting for the second half? I mean, he's really attractive because, again, the long-term potential there, the pedigree is there. He's under control for 2 seasons beyond this one via arbitration, barely making more than a league minimum this year. So, really attractive profile, but it's not a really attractive profile for we've got to get a guy right now who can help us win a World Series right now. Like, we don't know that he is that.
And to be fair, the Orioles are likely going to need bullpen help as well, and maybe that's what he is, but you're going to be paying an awful lot for a guy that might end up being a bullpen arm in these playoffs. Yeah. That, to me, Anthony, is what makes Fetty so compelling. And, again, I think that part of this is I've zeroed in on Fetty only because the list of names is so small that we know is going to be on the market, and maybe I'm too obsessed with the idea of Fetty. But, like, it does seem like it checks the box of guy that would actually help, that you would be comfortable. I know it's crazy to say that if you asked a Washington Nationals fan, but you would be comfortable with the idea of them starting in a 3-game wild card playoff, which right now the Orioles would go Burns, Rodriguez, and vibes would be the way that it would line up. I'd be comfortable with that. It would seem like the price would not be quite as overwhelming, although, again, I get it's a seller's market, and we'll see what that is. And there's still another year of control, and it feels like this is real with Eric Fetty. It doesn't feel like this is, a lucky 6 months. It feels like his time in Korea did change him. He introduced new pitches, and he is a different pitcher since he returned.
Yeah, it feels sustainable because of the command, which has become, unfortunately, a rare asset among pitchers in today's game. So you get good command with, above average strikeout rate, above average ground ball rate. I mean, yeah, that's attractive profile for October. A guy who, I like guys like that who have kind of figured themselves out along the way. Obviously, no stranger to the beltways. I don't know if that matters at all, but he knows his way around, I guess. So, yeah, I mean, that would be an interesting, what do you have to give up for him? Is it like a top 100 prospect for Eric Fetty, which, again, none of us would have thought going into the year, but, he's pitched great, and that profile is really strong, and you get the extra year of control, and it's affordable control for next year. So, yeah, I mean, that's a pretty nice, straightforward trade, and it's not going to be one where you're striking fear into the hearts of men by, lining up Eric Fetty in your playoff rotation, but he's a guy who I could certainly see getting the job done on that stage just because of his ability to limit, damaging contact and to not walk the park. That plays up in October.
I would think that would be helpful. Again, this comes back to, I guess the question the last couple of years have been, are other clubs looking at how deep the Orioles are and saying, we're going to ask more from you than we would from another. We all felt this way about Dylan Cease. Like when we heard what the White Sox wanted for Dylan Cease, we were like, no, you can't do that. And then you saw what the Padres traded for him, and you're like, wait a second. Like it. Couldn't the Orioles have made that trade? Like, it does feel like there almost is a tax because the Orioles have built up such a good system where, like, teams are asking for more from the Orioles and they're getting from other places.
It's interesting how that happens because there is so much homogeny in terms of how front offices value players. They all come from the same mindset and mold and statistical databases, et cetera.
Right.
But that does feel like a thing. The Yankees have probably complained about that over the years about having kind of a Yankee tax where, I don't know, but I think a lot of us when that trade went through were like, oh, okay, well, all right. It wasn't like some overwhelming deal, like a Juan Soto kind of trade from a few years ago.
No.
So, player value is it's so fascinating. It can change so quickly. The trade deadline is always its own animal because competitive juices kick in a way that they don't in December and January. I mean, these are competitive people year round, but when you're in the throes of a playoff race and it's nip and tuck and, every win counts and, or maybe it's a team that, is ahead of schedule and, surprisingly in the mix, like a Cleveland, for instance. I mean, competitive mindset can kick in and you can have offers for guys that were not conceivable just a few months before.
The word deadline does a lot there too, right? Which you don't have to deal with in December, January. Like, well, we could always revisit this in 4 weeks. Like, no, you can't do that anymore. This is it.
Right.
So, with that, you just brought up, Cleveland, and obviously one of the Cleveland strengths is the bullpen, of course. The Orioles also need bullpen help, obviously, and I don't think any of us in Baltimore are comfortable with the idea of trying to win a World Series with Craig Kimbrell as your predominant closer. He's had good moments this season, but he's also looked like the guy that, kind of fell apart late last year at times this year. The trouble being, it ain't going to be Mason Miller unless for some reason the Athletics just get to a point where they're like, hey, we'll just trade him for the sake of trading him, which doesn't seem smart, but who knows? That's an organization you can't really figure out at the moment. I thought maybe the answer could be Helsley, but the Cardinals are not falling out of the play. No one in the National League is falling out of the playoff race. Is there a closer, a legitimate closer that would even make sense that looks like they're going to be available come July 30th?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, you just look down right in your neck of the woods there.
Finnegan?
Maybe Finnegan.
Yeah.
That's probably that's probably the best option right now. Carlos Estevez with the Angels is another one, but this is one where I just kind of shrug when it comes to relievers and trades, I just kind of shrug my shoulders and say, ask me in a month.
Yeah.
Because profiles of a guy can change so much. And then even then, ask me a month after July because it's always like some out of nowhere relievers dealt, nobody was talking about the trade. And then he turns out he just goes on some crazy run in September, October. That happens so often in our game. It's just, relievers are goofy. It's a goofy role. It's a goofy job. It's a goofy profile. But I will say this, and for that reason, man, if I'm the A's, I'm trading Mason Miller. Like, I'm asking for the sun, the moon, and the stars and probably getting it. And because one, relievers are fluky and, so capitalize on insane value right now. And two, it's like, I don't have a fan base to answer to. It's kind of a rare situation where, what are you worried about? Blowback from the Oakland fan base? I think they're already pretty, angry as it is. So this might be the rare opportunity to just just do the pure baseball thing, which is capitalize on a reliever's, enormous value. But I don't expect them to do that.
No.
And again, to do that, you'd have to be completely blown away. I don't know if that's going to happen.
It's funny you say that, though, because we were having a conversation with your colleague Mark Feinsand about it, and he was like, yeah, I wouldn't slam the door on that just because I do think you could get to a point with if you're the Athletics where you say, look, the value's not going to get greater moving forward. And the argument is always you don't have to make the trade, but, like, you're holding on to Mason Miller for what? Like, you're not going to be good or competitive anytime. You're certainly not going to go out and spend money this offseason to play in a AAA ballpark for the next couple of years. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So I guess maybe I don't want to completely put it to bed. I just don't think that the Orioles, knowing what I know or we all know about Mike Elias and their Pythagorean model and the Yale education, I would just be stunned by the idea of Mike Elias being willing to pay the price that the Athletics would be looking for Mason Miller.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing there is the only way that the value accelerates, in the future is, the A's went into the year thinking this would be kind of a short-term thing for him in the bullpen. They still kind of saw him as the potential to be a frontline starter. And if they still have that thought, if he were to live up to that, in the future, I mean, it's kind of hard to do now that he's thrived so well in this role, but it is something. You've always rather a guy be a starter than a reliever, right? I mean, more value there, but yeah, so that's the only thing I would add to that. It's like, if the wheels were to put in motion somehow for him to convert back to starting and thrive in that capacity, okay, there he's even more valuable. But again, that's a huge if.
Yeah.
And with his profile and the injury rate in our league, with guys with that kind of stuff, sometimes it's a short shelf life, unfortunately. So, So again, I think there's a really interesting argument to just do the trade now and get, just completely get. I was going to say an overhaul. I mean, I don't know if they need an overhaul for their farm system. They could certainly use a lot of help, though. So, that would be an interesting swap, to say the least.
Anthony, can we plug the book for you?
Sure, yeah. I always like a book plug. A Fan's Guide to Baseball Analytics is, perfect for casual fans who are trying to understand all these crazy numbers we throw at you, or, if you have a mom or dad in your life who doesn't understand it, it's great for them as well. It's just kind of a casual, fun description of what the advanced metrics are, what they mean, how they're calculated, and how to understand them. Like, we know what a 300 hitter is, so this helps you understand what a 120 OPS plus guy is.
The people that don't like the idea of how many letters are now in these abbreviations, like XWOBA. It's too much, too many letters involved. I can't. Or the people that are still trying to argue with you about the value of a win for a pitcher, which, believe it or not, I was still dealing with last week from listeners. I can't believe that was still a thing. Definitely worth checking out. At Castrovince on Twitter is how you give him a follow. Anthony, thank you for spending some time with us this morning, man. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Enjoy the rest of the season.
That's Anthony Castrovince from MLB.com, MLB Network. Appreciate him taking the time for us this morning here on GCR. I don't want to talk myself into the idea that it could happen with Mason Miller because I genuinely do not believe that it can. And it's way more. I understand, Anthony Castrovince says, just go ahead and get everything you can. Well, I just don't know that any team is willing to pay that exorbitant of a price. But the argument is, you're playing poker. Okay, we put that out there. That's the price. Nobody matches it. But do you just take as much as you can get because of your unique situation? We always say you don't have to trade someone. Remember, that was what we were talking about with Emmanuel Clase before the year. Like, why would the Guardians trade? Well, the Guardians, it turns out, had every reason to believe they could compete. Nobody thought they were going to be this good. God, they were throwing other guys out there to shut you down last. That's how good their bullpen is. They stuck Barlow out there and shoved it up your ass. Nobody thought they were going to be this good, but they had reason to believe that they could be competitive in the AL Central coming into this year. So you want to trade for Emmanuel Clase, fine, but it's going to cost you the moon because it's not the end of the world to us that we hold on to Clase. And I'm not suggesting that'd be the end of the world for the Athletics to hold on to Mason Miller, but there's nothing to gain. You're going to be playing in a AAA stadium. You're not going to be investing money. That would be insanity. You have no fan base to appease. It's casuals who are going to be coming to the games because it's like we've never had this before in Sacramento. I'll come take a look at it. It's illogical. So I can understand the argument of, like, the Athletics just go ahead and trade Mason Miller. I just don't think it's going to change the reality of the Orioles paying, even if it's not the top level that the Athletics would be looking for, even if it's a level below, it still seems like it would be an exorbitant price. I'd be surprised by the Orioles paying that. I just don't think that's the way that Mike Elias wants to do business. I think their model, again, going back to the Pythagorean model, they're just not going to be doing that. But, are the Finnegans and the Scotts of the world going to get you fired up and think that you've solved the problem? Probably not, but that's probably more likely what's going to be available and at a price far closer to what it is that the Orioles would be inclined to pay. So that's the scenario. By the way, would have been nice for you to not get swept by the Cardinals. Might have helped a world in which Ryan Helsley would have been on the market. Let's continue to talk some Orioles this morning. Whenever I need somebody to sort of break things down for me and deal with bigger picture questions. I always turn to my friend from the Baltimore Banner. He is Mr. Jon Meoli, and he's back with us now here on GCR. John, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm all right, pal. Everything is good in this world. Let's. I have a lot of things that I want to cover, right? And I'm going to start with you the same way that I just started. Teams lose 4 games in a row. That happens, like in the same way that you can't get too elated about winning series against the 2 best baseball teams. Then you got to realize that, like, there are going to be ups, there are going to be downs during the course of a baseball season. It's odd that the Orioles have lost 4 in a row, 3 of them being games where they've scored a combined 4 runs. I think it's easier to be dismissive of that and say, hey, that's a blip on the radar. This team scores too many runs. They've actually got on base more of late than they were at the beginning of the season. I think they'll be okay. I still think that the concern that's real that you can't dismiss in this is the starting pitching combined with sort of the lack of depth in the bullpen.
Yeah. I mean, it is, you said it best yourself. Like, this is the team that last week beat the 2 of the best teams in baseball and did so pretty convincingly. And, I think they're a lot closer to that team than the team that hasn't really been able to get anything going. I have a really hard time kind of getting my head around the pitching issue. I think that, and I wrote it last week, and it's proven to be less true probably since than the moment I wrote it. But, like, this is a better rotation this year than it was last year. And I think a lot of ways, and that's borne out even with the guys who are hurt and aren't going to put on a uniform again for the rest of the year. So it's challenging to view it in that way and also think it's some kind of deficiency because this is a rotation that was a rotation that won 101 games. Corbin Burns is basically Kyle Bradish. Grayson Rodriguez is better Grayson Rodriguez. On the other side of that, you don't really know what you're going to get, good or bad, from the rest of them, but it's not often bad. It hasn't been bad for a lot of them basically all season except for this last week of Albert Suarez. So it's challenging for me to think that this is the new reality and this team has all of a sudden lost the ability to pitch. I think any team will have depth questions in the rotation. It's just a matter of how, acute those needs ultimately get.
So a couple of things, and based on what you wrote, it starts with the presence of Corbin Burns, of course, right? You didn't have anything like that a year ago. But I also think that the presence of Corbin Burns is what complicates this conversation because a year ago, the Orioles didn't have enough pitching, but the expectation wasn't to win a World Series, right? Like, when we were sitting around having this conversation in July, it was, hey, get through the year and then deal with it in the offseason and figure out who you are. They went out and got Corbin Burns, and Corbin Burns is here for 1 year. And so in that way, as much as like the fan base would always say, hey, it's time to win a World Series, they kind of acknowledged that with that move. Like, this was a one-year move, and I do think that that further exacerbates this conversation, and why there is such great concern is because you're viewing it through the prism of you've got Corbin Burnes for 1 year. It's possible that, like, this becomes your best shot. I'm not saying it will be, but it's possible that we'll look back in 5 or 6 years and say this was your best shot to win a World Series with this core.
Yeah, I think that there's, I think there's a lot of validity to that. I also, have my perspective on the Corbin Burnes acquisition was like Kyle Bradish was building up in January, and his elbow started to hurt, and you know what that means. And like
Right.
the same way that Craig Kimbrell is a 1 year replacement for Felix Bautista, like Corbin Burnes is a 1 year replacement for Kyle Bradish, and like we are the team that we are, and we roll. It's those are two very wide. Those are two different poles, basically. We're talking about two extremely different things, and I'm not going to, I think they probably will have some of that, like the view that you hold, which is like, all right, we did this, like, let's keep doing it. But like when Sigmundell was a blackjack dealer, he probably saw a lot of people make a lot of bad decisions because they had already made X amount of bets,
Right,
and
right.
realized that they made those bets and like wanted to recoup them, or wanted to get even, or wanted to make the bets that they made seem like they were better bets, like retrospectively. And like, that's not necessarily how that works. And I just wonder if they view the Corbin Burnes, part of this as like the Kyle Bradish insurance that I view it as, if they're going to change that perspective drastically based on how things have gone so far.
He is Jon Meoli. He's with us here on GCR. And I certainly would not suggest that, like, the thing to do is to continue, just be reckless and say it's this year or nothing. But I do think it has to add at least an element of significance to this year, or else I don't know that you can justify it in hindsight, but I don't want to get hung up on that part of this conversation. I guess the reality becomes now, as you say, like, what is Albert Suarez? Is there danger that the truth is that Albert Suarez was always going to turn into a pumpkin? That, yes, the whiff rate was good, but the stuff on the whole really wasn't all that dynamic, and like looking at him as a sub-2 ERA guy was never really a fair way to view Albert Suarez. Like, he's a fifth starter. He's a long man in the bullpen. That's the reality of what he is in 2024. Yeah,
that could ultimately be the case, and I wrote about his fastball specifically and kind of how he reverse engineered, all of his pitches to basically get himself back to the big leagues, and like that's great. But part of the reporting of that was talking to Mitch Blassmeyer, the assistant pitching coach, and he said that it was Albert Suarez's ability to, finally command his pitches that makes them play up. And I don't think that has really been what he's been doing the last couple starts. I don't know if that's something that, they can work on and get, his delivery back in the bullpen. All of a sudden he can start putting the ball where he wants to again. But based on the last two outings, he has not necessarily been fooling people or getting those swinging strikes and getting those pitches into the places that he wanted to. And that's, we're seeing what's happening. I think there's, I think there's a lot of built up, good in his body of work this year. So it's not going to be like he's going to be a guy with, it would have to be pretty terrible for a pretty decent amount of time for him to get to be a guy with a 6 ERA. But, when we talk about fifth starter swingman types, I always remember I was talking to a scout about like the Joey Rickard experience when he made the team as Rule 5 pick and was really good. He was basically like, this is what fourth outfielders do. Like for 2-3 weeks a month, like they can be starters, but the reason that they're fourth outfielders is because the other months they're not, and they don't perform like it. So like you kind of, when you get into that role of like, what is this guy is, is it a back end starter? Is it a guy who goes in and out of the rotation? It's because of the consistency, and like you're going to get good in a lot of instances, and you're also going to get the not good. I think it's going to be a challenge for Albert Suarez to get back to the guy he was, but I'm not going to rule out the possibility he can do that.
Let me present a question to you this way. I would be comfortable right now if you were telling me that there was a 7-game series and that one of Cole Irvin or Dean Kramer had to start Game 4. I'd be okay with that. But if you were telling me it's a 3-game series and it's a wild card series, is what the Orioles would have to play at the moment, and one of those two guys had to start what would be a determining Game 3, I would say, nah, I'm not good with that whatsoever. Is that wrong? Am I not giving those two guys enough credit? A healthy Dean Kramer, which in fairness is not the case at the moment, or Cole Irvin, who had been pitching really well until his last two starts. Am I not giving those guys enough credit where I say I don't think the Orioles could start one of those guys in Game 3 of a wild card series?
I think that's probably a fair thing to think. I also think that like them starting is probably not going to be like, if you're going to have either version of those guys that's going to get you into like the fifth inning of a playoff game in the first inning. You're not going to, I don't think they're going to be like plugging along and then the wheels come off in the third. Either you have the good one or you don't, and
right.
like you have someone else in reserve who is ready to come in like that second. I don't think that's like a super confidence-inducing thought or statement to make, but I think that if you go into, especially given, Dean Kramer basically had that, spot last year and it didn't go super great. I think you go into that this year with the idea that like this is not going to be the longest leash in the world, and if there are better options, you probably might look at those instead.
Yeah. So let's get to this part of the conversation, right? If they are going to be addressing starting pitching at the deadline, John, and let's present it through the prism of what you discussed, that it's not like an all-in mentality. It's more, let's make a trade that makes sense to try to bolster our chances for this year, but doesn't pay the highest price. So, obviously, clearly you're taking the top guys off. Jackson Holliday is not going to be in that conversation. But where would the line be for you in, like, these guys I would consider in a deal to try to go for it this year, and not – I don't even know that the rental pieces is what they'd be looking for, like an Eric Fetty who would have another year of control. Let's just have that. Where would be the line between I'd consider trading these guys, but I wouldn't consider trading these guys? Like, where would that line be?
I guess for me it's probably in the after the top three. It's probably after Basayo, Mayo,
so Mayo and
Holiday.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, that was a weird order that I just said them in. But after Holiday, Mayo, Basayo, we'll put Holiday first. I would probably say there. I think that where the Orioles' strength is in terms of like what they have in terms of tradable pieces, the outfielders, the corner outfielders who have just been tag teaming onto the roster, Stowers and Kerstad and Connor Norby, who we got to see, like those are all guys. I feel like if they were going to be traded, they might have already been traded. I think their ultimate strength is going to be some of the interesting, like toolsy Latin American guys who are in Delmarva and complex leagues, and all the pitching that's been developed. Like all these guys screen really well on a computer screen to a smart team. They all have really good stats for a team that maybe isn't a smart team. I think they're going to be able to do a lot with those, and that's not necessarily go get a top guy, but like you can make a 3 or 4 player package that is going to yield an impactful return and isn't going to make it so that the top end of the Orioles farm system is any worse than it was, before you made that trade.
I think that's fair. I guess the question would be, like, is there more depth than we genuinely believe it's a top-heavy at this point, organization. Is there more depth than we realize there is, either to, make up for whatever it is that you might lose at the deadline, or for you to be able to make deals with? I know you wrote about like Dylan Beavers recently, for example. Like, are we at a place where that depth is more prominent than perhaps we're recognizing that it is?
Yes and no. I mean, we're not in a place anymore where, you can basically draw a line under like the top 10 hitting prospects and be like, all these guys are big leaguers and nobody really has any doubt about it. We're not there anymore. Some of those guys are still prospects, but also have made it to the big leagues and like have big league futures. Like I think that there's a difference in like that Beavers, Fabian, I guess Bradfield too range, where like you're not talking about the floors that you were when you're talking about that tier of prospect 2 years ago would have been like a Connor Norby.
Mm-hmm.
You're not talking about as high of a floor, I don't think, but there's a lot of upside, and like they're all improving and getting better, and like development just takes time. But I think that and part of the fascination that I have for the next couple months is they probably think, I think they do think that a lot of the pitchers who we're talking about, who these deals can be built around, are also pretty good. And how much are you sacrificing that to improve pitching now when you could be improving pitching in a year with all this? I think that they're in a good spot. I think that the top end guys are always going to get the attention, and the B+ level guys are the ones that everyone looks at it what are we going to do with this guy? I don't think they look at it that like that. I don't think they ever have. I think it's just a matter of can we get value without giving up too much value?
I always get the sense that that's what they're looking to do, and I it feels like that they're capable of that. It feels like there are moves that can be made without having, although as everybody points out, it's a massive seller's market, and who knows when we get to the point where you have to pay a king's ransom even for an Eric Fetty, and then oh boy, that's not exactly the way this is gonna go. All right, John, what can I plug for you, man?
We got Inside the Dugout, the Banner subscriber-only newsletter that's in the production process right now. That'll be landing in people's inboxes this afternoon. It's been really cool to be able to provide that service and kind of deliver that content in a new way.
It's free if you're subscribed to the Banner. There's no additional cost to it.
Correct. Yes, it's for Banner subscribers. It's pretty fun. I've been enjoying it. I wrote about Kobe Mayo this week. Because why would one not write about Kobe Mayo this week? We got an interesting Arms on the Farm, I think, coming soon. I got some, we're expecting another baby in any day now. So I've got a lot of interesting stories reported and not written because who knows when the next time I get to a baseball stadium will be once that little guy comes.
At Jon Meoli on Twitter. What's the date?
Today or the due date?
The due date.
July 8th. Today is the 25th.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. July 8th, man. That is enjoy. Congratulations in advance, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for taking the time for us, buddy.
Thanks a lot.
It's Jon Meoli, Baltimore Banner, with us here on GCR. Appreciate him taking the time. All right, hour number 1 in the books. Flew by. When we come back in, we're going to talk some Big 3 hoops. Baltimore native Donté Green joins us next. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin, and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now, and on the cover, Glenn Clark and Stan the Fan Charles sit down for a sports conversation with Maryland Governor Wes Moore, discussing the Orioles and Ravens stadium leases, the future of horse racing in Maryland, and how his own football career at Johns Hopkins shaped him as a leader. This is also our annual travel issue with information about sports tourism opportunities in Maryland for your family to take advantage of throughout the summer. Press Box is available for free at over 500 locations throughout the region, including 60 Royal Farm stores, or you can read the entire issue at PressBoxOnline.com, where you can find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
Stan the Fan Charles, Ross Grimsley, and Mike Boddicker got together yesterday. And if you missed that show, you can see it today. Facebook.com/PressBoxSports. Click on the videos tab. Go to YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline or PressBoxOnline.com/video. Talking Orioles, talking baseball. Stan the Fan, Ross Grimsley, and Mike Boddicker. It was a lot of fun, and if you missed it, you can go check it out right now. Speaking of baseball, congratulations to Tennessee. Bad news for Griffin's bank account, but good news for Tennessee fans as they beat Texas A&M 6-4. Got interesting late. I ended up flipping over and spending some time with that. Got interesting, got compelling there for a minute, but ultimately Tennessee does hold on and responds after dropping Game 1 of the College World Series final to win the series 2-1 in their first ever national championship. Congratulations to Tennessee, and of course, congratulations to the Florida Panthers. Sheesh. Took the long way. Led Edmonton right back into the series, tried to blow a 3-0 series lead, but ended up winning Game 7 and winning the Stanley Cup, and that is the only thing that people will ever remember 10 years from now, unless you're an ardent, hardcore supporter of one of those two teams. You will never remember the scenario. You will only remember that the Florida Panthers were Stanley Cup champions. By the way, this is the part where sports talk, the sports media that has not paid a lick of attention ends up getting on board in the last 48 hours because it was the thing that was going on. So hey, better talk about it. And all they can really talk about is the sort of emotional nature of blowing a 3-0 series lead. That's all they really have. They can't talk about the sport. The only thing that I could add from watching the game last night is I was surprised by how long it took Edmonton to pull their goalie in the third period. It didn't happen until there was a minute and 20 seconds left. And I certainly understand that you're at risk of giving up an empty net goal the other way, which effectively ends the series. But if you don't score, that ends the series too. So, it's the old. You wish that you could have gotten a power play. You get a power play with 3.5 minutes left, you're absolutely pulling your goalie and going 6-on-4 and assuming that with that advantage, you're going to be able to block any puck that comes out the other way. By the way, when they finally did pull the goalie, they didn't even have possession in the last minute of the game. But
I had an Edmonton plus 1.5 for the game too, so I was like, I know that's just going to go. But
Yeah,
then you were right. They just didn't pull the goalie until it was a minute.
They did not pull the goalie. It was just a very strange. The clock kept ticking, and I just kept saying to myself, they're just going to keep doing this. They're just going to keep. And at the time, I sort of understood because they in the third period they were getting way more of the rush than Florida was, but that doesn't help. You have to score a goal. And as was pointed out by McDonough and Ferraro, they just left their top guys out on the ice for the better part of the third, and they were exhausted. Yeah. They were spent. So it's what it is. It's what it is, a valiant effort, but as my friend Dan Connolly pointed out, the streak continues. An American team has won the Canadian Football League championship more recently than a Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup. And there hasn't been an American CFL team since 1996. I guess technically since 1995 was the last season of the American experiment. So there you go. There you go. That's what's going on there. All right, we're trying to track down our friend Donté Green, see where he is, and chat with him about the Big Three coming to town. Just because we have a minute here talking about basketball, there is some news this morning that I did want to get into a little bit. You might have seen that this morning it was announced / made official that the University of Maryland and Georgetown are going to renew their basketball rivalry. And a 4-year, 4-game series was announced between Maryland and Georgetown for early season non-conference games. It'll start not this fall, but next fall, the fall of 2025, and they will alternate games in College Park and at the Capital One Arena. A couple, just to go back a little ways in history, one of the issues that always came up with trying to do a series between Maryland and Georgetown is that the Georgetown folks always said, well, this doesn't work for us. We don't want to come to College Park because there isn't really a return game. We play at Capital One Arena. There's going to be as many Maryland fans there as there will be Georgetown fans there. Perhaps more. And so that's always been a hang-up in this because Maryland's never been like, okay, well, we'll just play all of the games on your home floor then. That doesn't make... What, you want us to call them neutral games when they're literally on your home floor? I think Georgetown plays like 2 or 3 early season games on the McDonough Arena, on their campus arena, but it might not even be that much. It's such a small building that like I don't think they do much there. So it's always been a particular issue. The Gavitt Games arrangement that existed between the Big Ten and the Big East forced the Maryland-Georgetown games that we did see the last few years. The truth is, and it's the part that nobody wants to say out loud, these programs ain't what they used to be. And so they need something. Like they do. They need something that sparks something. Georgetown needs to sell some tickets at that giant building they got to rent out. Like, they keep... I don't know how the money works for Georgetown. I don't know how they afford to do this. We're like, there is just...
Tuition?
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
I guess that is a fair point. But, like, the math don't seem to math. They are playing... It's not their building. They got to rent it. They don't make any of the money on, like parking. I don't know how this works for them. I'm sure they have a fairly good deal with the district, and that allows for them to not take a bath. But, like, they're not selling tickets. Like, people just aren't going because Georgetown basketball is putrid and has not been very... I mean, if you want to argue they've been closer to Final Four relevant more recently than Maryland has, you could probably make that argument, but it ain't good either way.
Yeah.
And the bottom for Georgetown has been
rock.
Lower than the bottom for Maryland. But, this is a bad debate. It's two programs that just ain't it anymore. Maryland also needs something. Like, how do you get, fans invested when you just have not been nationally relevant in forever? It was almost kind of embarrassing that ESPN allowed Scott Van Pelt to, like, do it. Remember a few years back, Maryland played Georgetown in College Park, and ESPN let Scott Van Pelt do his SportsCenter show from courtside at Maryland. And, like, who cared?
Well,
It is a show for one, at the most, 2 markets.
Well, anyone who was watching SportsCenter wasn't going to turn it off.
Probably not, but like
it probably wasn't bringing in audience. I guess
that's. I remember. Yeah. I don't remember who Gravis was playing for at the time, but I remember like whoever it was playing the Wizards that night, and so like after the game he raced over, and here's Scott Van Pelt like doing it. Like Gravis is one of my favorite humans alive. There's a documentary coming out about Gravis this year about his attempt to continue his basketball career through injuries and surgeries, and it's very compelling. And they sent it to me, and I watched it, and. I think they're going to screen it at Maryland in the fall, and so we'll have Gravis on then to talk about it. But, like, I love Gravis. It is it's an audience that's small. Like, that is a small audience, relevancy. And that's the problem here. The problem here is that, like, this is cool for one market. In Baltimore, which is a really significant market for Maryland basketball, we don't give a flying F about the Maryland-Georgetown rivalry. Georgetown ain't good. Who cares? You could announce that Maryland was playing Georgetown, or you could announce that Maryland was playing Rhode Island. And in Baltimore, it wouldn't make a difference. Now, if you said insert relevant team is coming to College Park next year, then even the fan base in Baltimore would say, hell yeah, it's a big game. Like, remember when they announced the UCLA series, I get it that this year both teams ended up being bad, but like when they announced the UCLA series, the year that UCLA came to College Park, and I get it was ended up being an ass-kicking, but like there was life. The building was electric. The entire fan base was up for it because UCLA was really good. You announce that you're playing a really good team. You announce that you're facing a really good program, and let's talk. But you announce that you're playing Georgetown, just outside of a group of people that are old enough to have cared then, randomly Drew Forrester, which is funny. Like, Drew was really into Georgetown all those years ago. So Drew might be like, that's interesting. I remember the old Maryland-Georgetown rivalry. I mean, look, dude, that game Joe Smith played against Georgetown at the US Air Arena is high on my list of, like, moments when I was falling in love with Maryland basketball as a kid. But we are so far removed from that you just can't move the Baltimore side of the fan base by announcing Maryland playing Georgetown. Now, the D.C. side of the fan base, of course. Like, they have friends that are Georgetown fans, and they can talk S, and it feels like a thing. But it's a thing for one market. For this market, which matters, it's the next game on Maryland's schedule. It's a little bit more compelling than playing High Point. But, like, a little bit until,
unless Georgetown gets
right,
good.
unless Ed Cooley turns Georgetown around. And, like, again, a lot of people wanted Ed Cooley to be the Maryland coach. So, like, maybe he will get Georgetown turned around. But until that happens.
Because they showed up for the Providence games, I think. Yeah, like they.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
Like Georgetown
yeah. They were ready to go.
Yeah,
they were ready to go. Until that happens, it's just the next game on the schedule and slightly more compelling than playing a mid-major. But that will also be determined. Like, when Maryland played Louisville, you couldn't make Louisville interesting. Louisville stunk. I bring all that up to say I'm okay with them trying to energize that side of the fan base. They got to understand that for right now, it's just that side of the fan base. This is one of the dangers for the D.C. people or the D.C. area people that work at Maryland. Like, they genuinely, or the people that aren't from this area that end up working at Maryland or being involved in administration, marketing, things like that, they don't understand that we're not compelled by this. Like, it would be they genuinely believe they're announcing something that every Maryland fan would be excited about. That's not the case. Again, if Georgetown was good, be a different conversation. But right now, this is compelling for the D.C. side of the fan base, which is a big part of it. For the Baltimore side of the fan base, it's the thing that I keep saying. You're letting other programs are coming in and playing basketball games at the refurbished arena next year. Virginia Tech, Penn State, Villanova, Virginia. Like, they're all getting games in Baltimore. Maryland's got to recognize it. I see them like congratulating themselves and giving themselves pats on the back for putting up billboards in Baltimore with Derek Queen on them. And I'm not saying that's a bad idea. Hey, there's a Baltimore kid that's playing for us. He seems like he's going to be significant. Come down and watch us. Worth doing. I would encourage more of that. But it's been something we talked about ad nauseum. I appreciated Mike Loxley saying, we're going to bring a practice to Morgan State, and we want to go touch Baltimore. His program should also try to figure out a way, to get a game in Baltimore. When the Maryland Navy games in Baltimore were good, I get that's much more difficult now with Navy in a conference. Like it's almost impossible now for Navy to play a non-conference game against Maryland because they got to keep up all of their rivalry games on top of their conference games. Like, they're not giving up Notre Dame, Army or Navy, or Army or Air Force. So they run out of room. They either don't get the schedule you'd like to have one game on the schedule that you feel like you're going to win. Of course, they haven't always won those games, but you'd like to feel like they want to play a FCS opponent or somebody that they feel like they could count as a victory. So that's going to be more and more difficult, but there's no reason why Maryland football couldn't try to prioritize every few years playing a game in Baltimore. And it's the same thing I would say for Maryland. Maryland basketball, it shouldn't be every few years. It should be every year. You got to understand. This is what Jerry Eisenberg just said. We don't treat in Kentucky the Derby is a fairy tale. In Baltimore, it's a horse race. We are way too practical. You're not. You're not going to piss on our leg and tell us it's raining. We are too practical. You can't just say, well, it was a billboard. We gave you a billboard.
Don't urinate on my leg and tell me it's raining.
Thank you. Thank you, Barry. Appreciate it. That's who we are as a people, as a fan base, as a group of sports fans. You got to do something for us. And announcing a series against Georgetown, which is electric for them, ain't electric for us. It's just who the opponent's going to be. It's about as exciting as playing Rutgers in basketball.
That's their bitter rival. What are you talking about?
It's true. I actually have played some compelling games with Rutgers.
Well, we know why they won't play Towson.
Because they're afraid they're going to lose.
They're scared. So.
If they played them in the CAA tournament, they wouldn't lose.
That might future. Well, the CAA semi to be.
Fair enough. That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, specifically the semifinals. And I'm not. By the way, I'm not suggesting that Maryland would play a game at Towson either. That is.
That'd be amazing.
I mean, it would be unbelievable, but it feels like, and maybe we're
that
getting.
Would be in the. If they did that, they should do it in the arena.
Yeah, I mean, but I would want them to play a more marquee opponent. No offense to Towson, I'm sorry, you don't want to run the risk of and that's part of the problem that they didn't get the last time they tried this either. We're hey, you should just be appreciative that we're playing any game here, and so they played Charlotte and Princeton, and they got good crowds, but they didn't get sellout crowds because those games wouldn't sell out any big building. And that's the danger. If they get a more marquee opponent, they don't want to play that game in Baltimore. Because they tried with Loyola Chicago. They're hey, they were a Final Four team last year. Come on, guys. But that was the most marquee opponent that they faced in Baltimore. And I understand the difficulty. I'm not trying to come down on them and say that I don't get it. I get that it's difficult. Because if you can play a game against a more marquee opponent, then you want to play it in your building. We just talked about this with Georgetown, where you get to sell the parking, and you get to get the concessions, and you get the. I understand the difficulty of this. So now you're trying to find the most compelling, but not too compelling. It's a catch-22, man. It really is. So they were well, maybe we do these
It's Villanova would be.
They would want that game in College Park, and I understand that. Now, could you play St. Joseph's. I don't think that would invigorate, but it wouldn't be. It's a very difficult thing. Part of it is the nature of college basketball. Where without
Temple,
they'd probably still want that one. Even a game against Temple, they'd probably still want in College Park. That's the tough part about trying to do this. But that's the reality. I'm not trying to come down on them. I think it's a good thing because I do think that side of the fan base matters to them. They want to play to that. They're trying to invigorate the fan base. That's a big part of their fan base. But it's for that part of the fan base. North of, Anne Arundel County and north, it's okay, that's a game on your schedule. And they've got to be aware of that side of the fan base too. And what are you trying to do for that side of the fan base? How are you connecting with them? And the biggest way is to play a game. And I would say even if it's a game that doesn't sell out, you still do it. At least come show, you can be frustrated by the fact that you can't use a Maryland-Princeton game to sell out a building. Part of that's on you. The program's not good enough. If the program was better, you would. If Maryland was competing year in and year out to get to the Final Four, you could play anybody in Baltimore and that game would sell out. But you're not. That's the reality of the circumstances. There's still a bit of a disconnect just because the program hasn't been very good. So I would say, take another Princeton game, put it in Baltimore, and deal with the fact that you might have 8,000 people there, but that's still 8,000 people. And it's still a touch with this community and giving something to this fan base. That's Glenn Clark, just spitballing, not a sermon, just a thought.
JMU maybe.
That kind of, I guess would be... Yeah. It would be a little bit weird that you'd be doing it from both programs would have to come north. That would be a strange thing.
Probably wouldn't mind.
I would say Delaware, right? Play Delaware. And again, nobody's going to be excited about it. It's not sexy in any way, but you'd sell a few more tickets because you get folks from Delaware that would be coming in to play. You'd sell more tickets that way. Play Delaware in Baltimore. There, solved all. You're playing them in football. Solved all your problems. You're welcome, Glenn Clark. All right, real quick before, because we are going to talk to Donté Green in a minute. We'll continue some basketball conversation. There were 2 sports questions at trivia last night. One extraordinarily easy. What are the 3 D1 sports schools inside the city limits of Baltimore?
The 3 D1.
Yeah.
Coppin.
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
And then inside the which one am I forgetting here? Loyola.
Jesus. Again, it's a
easy.
little. Yeah, was it? It's super easy, but it's a little bit annoying. And she tried to word it in a way that covered herself, but it didn't. Because Johns Hopkins does have D1 lacrosse, and that's an annoying question because you do have to acknowledge that they do have D1 sports. And then the other one is, what are the 2 stadiums that have hosted Super Bowls with an attendance of over 100,000?
Jeez. So, not recent?
You don't get to know any of these things, Griffin. You can try to talk them through.
2 stadiums?
2 stadiums
so they
have hosted Super Bowls with an attendance of over 100,000. And I will tell you that I went 2 for 2.
Okay. I thought about to say I went to them, and I was like, okay.
No. I went 2 for 2. I got both of them right. Everybody else was throwing out answers, and I just have to kept telling them, nope, that's wrong.
No, I'm sure you
were. I wasn't extraordinary confident in both answers. One, I was extraordinary confident in. The other one, I was pretty confident in. But that left the room open for people to throw out their own answers, and I was like, no, not that.
So, it would have to be a 100,000 seat stadium.
What? 2 stadiums have hosted Super Bowls with an attendance of over 100,000.
It's they added or they let in.
Griffin.
I'm just
Yeah, you can talk it through, but it's like you're trying to get something out of me, and I'm not going to do that.
Well, yeah, that's what's going to happen.
Not going to happen. And we got to squeeze a break in before we talk to Donté Green. So come
on. Let's go with Texas Stadium.
Texas Stadium is incorrect.
Are you sure?
Yes. I don't even actually know that Texas Stadium hosted a Super Bowl. That's a good question.
Texas
Stadium.
The Rose Bowl.
The Rose Bowl is correct.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
That
was the easiest one.
Which Super Bowl was that?
The one that Michael Jackson did halftime for. Bills Cowboys.
So the 90s.
What year would that have been?
Early 90s. Rose Bowl and
Super Bowl. What year? Rose Bowl. It's hosted 5 Super Bowls, in fact.
Oh, wow.
The last one
the
of the Rose Bowl?
of Texas.
Texas Stadium?
Yeah.
Texas Stadium was...
Then...
Texas Stadium's capacity was only 65,000.
Yeah. Well, maybe they were going to add...
Of course, remember who won the final game ever played at Texas Stadium?
That would be the Baltimore Ravens.
Baltimore Ravens, sure did.
100,000. I mean...
Quick.
Yeah, because they wouldn't have hosted a Super Bowl.
Who?
I don't know. I'm thinking of like the
Just
Big Ten schools.
they have 100,000 seat stadiums? Yeah, that makes sense. Right?
Nebraska.
Yeah, well, Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State.
Then I'll go with, give me no.
Would you just guess something already?
Hard Rock Stadium.
Miami? No.
Yeah.
What if I told you were so close?
So the other Texas, wherever the Longhorns play?
No.
That is one of the Big Ten schools?
No.
Oh, okay.
You were Texas Stadium. You
Texas
literally couldn't be closer.
Oh. Texas Bowl. Is that what it's called? What is it?
How about if you would have just gotten the name of the stadium wrong, apparently she would have given you the point.
Oh, okay. Texas.
If you would have just said Cowboy Stadium, which, by the way, I'm infuriated by, that she would have given you this point. AT&T Stadium is the answer, because remember, they famously sell all those standing room only tickets that you're never going to be able to see the field.
Okay.
They fill up the entire...
So just every concourse is just filled with people?
They just sell boatloads of standing room only tickets, and then they have, every time the game starts, they have a race, because
that's right. Okay.
You can get to one place. There's one viewing area where you could see the field if you buy a standing room only ticket, and otherwise it's an abomination. But they had over 100,000 for the Super Bowl there because of it.
What Super Bowl is that?
That was Green Bay, Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Was Aaron Rodgers?
Okay, that makes sense.
That was when he was our hero, because he went and beat the Steelers in the Super Bowl.
What do you mean he's still our hero?
When we come back in, Donté Green will join us. We'll talk about the Big Three this Saturday. That's next, Glenn Clark Radio.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor, dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now, and on the cover, Glenn Clark and Stan the Fan Charles sit down for a sports conversation with Maryland Governor Wes Moore, discussing the Orioles and Ravens stadium leases, the future of horse racing in Maryland, and how his own football career at Johns Hopkins shaped him as a leader. This is also our annual travel issue with information about sports tourism opportunities in Maryland for your family to take advantage of throughout the summer. Press Box is available for free at over 500 locations throughout the region, including 60 Royal Farm stores, or you can read the entire issue at PressBoxOnline.com, where you can find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
The days are getting hotter, and so are your Baltimore Orioles. Hi, I'm Paul Valley, and you can join me and Ryan Blake on the Bat-Around every Saturday at 10 a.m. as the Orioles march towards another postseason berth. With a Cy Young candidate in the rotation and multiple MVP candidates in the lineup, this might be the most well-equipped Orioles team to end a decades-long World Series drought. From the Midsummer Classic to the trade deadline and beyond, Ryan and I will be with you through the dog days of summer and into those crisp fall nights. So tune into the Bat-Around every Saturday starting at 10 a.m. right here with PressBox.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Tuesday edition of the program. If you're not aware, Sports and Social is still the best place to watch all of the big events. Yes, the final season is over, but that doesn't mean there isn't great soccer still to be viewed all throughout the course of the day today, for example, between the Euro and the Copa. Incredible soccer being played for the next couple of weeks. And then even after that, big event, you might have heard of it coming up in Paris. Maybe the Home Run Derby, the All-Star Game. There's so many huge events, and there is nowhere better to watch all of them than inside Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. The best place, because the atmosphere is electric. Everybody's living and dying on every play and every game. Giant media wall, great food and drink specials, all inside Live Casino and Hotel at Sports and Social. If you haven't been, you're missing the best sports viewing venue in the entire region, man. You got to go check out Sports and Social inside Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. And don't forget that Live Casino Rewards members have the opportunity to earn discounts on cash and credit purchases at the casino. Join the Live Casino Rewards Club online or in person at Live today. See complete details at livecasinohotel.com. Speaking of the Euro, my God, yesterday. Look, Italy fan, they're frauds. They're not very good. But holy shit. Seen a lot of things, man. Kind of reminiscent of the Landon Donovan World Cup goal. Just out of nowhere, at the death. Crazy, man. Unbelievable. Really unbelievable.
Nothing like the Landon Donovan goal.
Just because that was the World Cup or because it was the U.S.?
And it was the
yeah,
U.S.
I mean, for you, it might not have been. But
I have Italian blood. But,
okay.
But I don't care about
the wildly unexpected nature of it. That match was over, and look what happened. Just crazy moment at the Euro yesterday as Italy moves on. There is still a path, despite the fact that Croatia only finished with 2 points. There is still a path because you did feel for Luka Modric at the end there. There is still a path, I guess, where if England wins by a certain number of goals today, then Croatia could still get through, but
I need England to lose.
For a bet or for our thing?
For this.
Okay.
They're playing one of the S and then E.
Got it.
Either Slovenia or Serbia. I have both.
I'm still sitting atop the table at 18 points now. Proctor and Nick Kelly at 15. John and Little Rock in a lot of trouble, sitting with 7 points at this point in our competition.
Spain.
God bless him. God bless him going for it yesterday. All right, this Saturday, CFG Bank Arena is the location. The Big Three coming to Baltimore for the first time. Our next guest, one of my favorites, of course, Towson Catholic legend before he went on to Syracuse and the NBA. Now he comes back and gets to play in his hometown this Saturday. He is Donté Green, and he's with us now here on GCR. Donté, it's Glenn back in Baltimore. It's always great to catch up, man. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Oh, yeah, no problem, Glenn. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, dude. Donté, you play basketball a lot of places in your life, right? Have you ever actually played basketball at CFG or Baltimore or Royal Farms or whatever that arena might have been called over the years?
I have never. So I know, of course, it's being called. First was the Baltimore Arena, then, or in my years, it was the Baltimore Arena. Then it was Royal Farms. But I have never played at CFG. Been to a few concerts down there. I know it's newly renovated. Haven't been in there since the renovation. Didn't get a chance to make it to CIAA's this year. But I'm guessing it's going to be a good time, man. I know the whole city's coming out, and my family will be there for sure. So I have a boatload of tickets, and that I have given away. Family, as soon as the dates came out, everybody jumped on the tickets. So it should be a good time. It's going to be a great time.
What does it mean? Like, dude, you've done, I mean, when I say everything, you're going to say I haven't done everything, but you've done so much in this sport in your career. Is it kind of unique that here you are this deep into your basketball life and you're getting to experience something like this that's so meaningful that you've never done before?
No, for sure. I became a professional when I was 20 years old, man.
Yeah.
And I'm now 36 years old. So, it's been a while, but it's been a great journey for me. And for the most part, what I'm excited about while still playing in the Big Three is for my kids, man. My kids get to come out. They were young when I was in the NBA and, kind of grew up with me while I was overseas, but now I got a bunch of teenagers. So to be able to still play in the Big Three and to have their friends be able to come out, our family, their little cousins be able to come out and see me play, go at a high level. Guys are out there. The Big Three is very, very competitive, very, very physical. And, people going to see that this weekend, but it's a good time. I'm happy mostly for my kids and my family to be able to travel and play at home and for them to be able to see me.
That's awesome, man. That's so cool. How are you kids like basketball players already?
Yeah, my youngest son, he's going into the 9th grade. He's about 6'4". I have another one that's a 13-year-old. He's about 6'2". My 12-year-old is on his way. He's 5'8", 5'9". I got some size. My boys and my baby girl's gonna be the tallest. So.
Where's your?
Yeah, my kids athletic.
Where are they gonna be playing?
So we live down in North Carolina.
Okay.
So my boys are down here in the North Carolina sports scene.
Man.
That's
ripe.
It's always good to come back home.
Yeah, ripe with competition. Dude, it's so cool.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It really is so cool, and I feel like in a way, like I think it's a great thing that you get to do this before your career is over. To your point about playing at a high level. And I don't know, like if emotions, if that still even gets to you at this point in your life, but there's got to be something about like walking out on that floor this Saturday, like, yo, this is happening. That's a little bit different, right?
No, for sure. The crib it's always special to play at home. I say that all the time. I'll be playing also in the Brunson League. Shout out to Sean Brunson and his pro-am that we have in Baltimore. Yeah, I'll be playing in that on Sunday. After the Big Three, and just that love, that hometown love. We are toughest critics. Baltimore is the toughest place I say to play basketball, and everybody from the West Coast to the South has come out and said that. So to be home and be able to play and put on the show is always a good feeling. It's always love, and I'm just looking forward to this weekend. Big weekend for me, for sure.
That's awesome. He is Donté Green. He is with us here on GCR. You bring up like Baltimore Hoopers, Donté. You, of course, a little bit different than like the always the thought process when you talk about Baltimore Ballers is that like they're undersized and they've got to make up for it in their toughness. Clearly, that ain't you. Like you never had to deal with the undersized part of this. But what is like the mentality? Why are Baltimore basketball players different than even high level players from DC, Philly, New York, things along those lines?
It's that Baltimore toughness.
Yeah.
Like you can't really put a words on it. It's hard to describe. You just know it. Like hoopers know, like, oh, when you say you're from Baltimore, you hoop. It's a level of respect around the country, like really worldwide. You hear, especially with how we had back in the day with the Dunbar with Muggsy and everybody before even Muggsy, and then we had Skip Wise. Like through the generations, we've always had a tough player or a tough group, tough team that's always, put Baltimore on the map. And, you travel with that, you carry that, and it's definitely, it's pride, man. You got to go out there and just play hard. You're playing for the city.
we got another one that's going into the league. Bub Carrington this week obviously is going to get that phone call probably in the first round of the draft, and is going to continue that legacy. Is there a brotherhood? Is there does it mean something to you that when somebody like Bub is going to get that opportunity, that it registers with you, hey, we need you to be the next one in this group, the way that you were obviously with, we've talked about Melo so much with you over the years, and Will Barton.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something significant still for the brotherhood of Baltimore basketball players?
No, I think when you're younger, everything is competition because you're in the city. So everybody has their own, everybody has their own lanes, and everybody has, a bunch of people in your ear. Oh, you're better than this person, or this person's better than you, or just everybody talking. But once you get to a certain level, I feel like that it's definitely respect, and you tip your hat, especially Bub. Bub, his dad was helped running Team Melo, our ARU team when I was coming up. So I've known Lil Bub since he was born. So it's crazy just to see him, get drafted, and he's just another one up. We got so many guys. Cam is already in the. Cam Whitmore just went. We got Sticks, Jalen Smith, who's in the league. A bunch of other guys. Trevor, Trevor Queen.
Oh, Trevor Queen.
Another guy from the area.
Absolutely. Yep. Trevor Queen.
we're always putting out product. Of course, Emmanuel's there. We always putting out product from Baltimore, but it's just good to see the guys once they make it. Tip your hat, keep working. Do well for the city, and just keep putting on.
Since the last time you and I talked, Melo made it official, right? And I know that we knew even then, but what did it mean to you to see him get his flowers after he made it official? Someone that I don't want to say polarizing, because I don't think that there was a lot of real negativity towards Melo during his career, but he dealt with his detractors. He dealt with the people that, because he never won a title, because, whatever they felt. But what did it mean to you to see him get his flowers after he made it official?
I think it was well deserved, a little long overdue. I know he probably wouldn't have been one for a farewell tour, but he definitely deserved a farewell tour. In my opinion, top 10 greatest of all time. It's just hands down, just period. Just his ability to score at his size with such with grace. It was it's definitely his highlights will forever be fire. I know my kids watch them. Hopefully their kids watch them. But yeah, Melo's a legend, man, and not just in the city though, but in the basketball world, globally.
No question.
Super dope, man.
No question, man. All right, so for people that have never seen the Big Three, that are just checking it out for the first time because it's coming to Baltimore, what should fans in this area know about the league, know about the Killer Threes, know about what it is they're going to see this Saturday?
What's crazy is it's everybody says it's basically like a street ball out there. It's very physical, but it's skilled at the same time. Guys, you're on an island. It's only three players on each team on the floor at one time. So it's a lot of space. I know we're half court, but it's still a lot of space. So man, you got to be ready to go every night because it's one-on-one. It's a little bit of help, but it's one-on-one. So if you can't play a little bit of defense, you're gonna be exposed out there, man. It's gonna look bad. So, but it's great for the fans. A great family atmosphere. Like I said before, my kids are always there, running throughout the arena. Talking to the other guys. All the teams are there. We all play in one spot. So you got a bunch of NBA legends, bunch of guys who were all-stars in the league that are playing now. It's some good basketball, man. It's a good time. And I'm hyped that it's in the city because we should have been came to Baltimore.
Oh no, it's
because
perfect.
we love our basketball, bro.
Yep.
We love our basketball, and we definitely support, especially with Cube and it being black owned. Super dope, man. Super dope.
We're hanging out with Charles Oakley, right? I feel like Oak probably would still be willing to fight at this point. I feel like that is probably.
Nah, man. He do. Oak is a guy, Oak is old school, so you gotta gain his respect, man. You gotta gain his respect. We got into it last year of the first game of the season. he said I did something, and of course it probably wasn't the strongest move. It was some soft stuff. It was early. I was cold. So, Oak called a timeout and called me out on it.
Wow.
So I'm like, all right, Oak, I hear you. I get it. It's Father's Day weekend. My son's sitting right there on the court, and Oak just keep going. I'm like, Oak, at the end of the day, we grown men. You ain't going. We had to stop the game. We went on the court with it. It was crazy. But, after that, man, Oak, we done seen eye to eye. We ain't had no problems. That's my guy. That's Unc. They call him Unc. So, me and Big Unc cool. But
I feel like that needed it. Like, you wouldn't have ever had the full Charles Oakley experience if you hadn't had a moment like that. Like,
nah, for sure. But it's all. I got his respect now. We good.
That's awesome.
It's about that, and he's a legend for sure within himself. So,
oh, no doubt, man. No doubt.
Big love for Oak though. All the aunties got to be out there this for Oak, man.
That's awesome. Hey, I before I let you go, I don't even know if you have had a connection with him over the years. Again, this Baltimore basketball community, but a lot made over the last week about Sam Cassell, man, and the fact that here he is, right, like winning another title,
champion.
All he's ever done is be a winner, and he's been at it for a long time, and we're watching a lot of people that don't seem to be nearly as qualified as he is get head coaching opportunities, and yet Sam's never got his. What do you make of it, or does it bother you that Sam, everything he's done, for some reason he's still not the guy getting the opportunity to be a head coach in the NBA?
To be honest, I see Big Sam, OG. I see him in the summer times, and I never talk about that. I never ask him. It's two ways to look at it though. You got to think that he's a very, very, his basketball mind is crazy. He's intelligent, very, very intelligent. In the basketball world, won a championship obviously as a coach, player first, all-star, 15 plus years, and like he's very, very, he's knowledgeable. He's a legend. So I look at it as he might not be ready. He might not want to go into a situation where he know it won't
work.
The right fit. It won't work. Yeah. So like I'm gonna take my time. Yes, he's been coaching in the league since he retired for years. Like always gets a coaching job. Always top head assistant.
Yep.
He's been there. He's proven. So he's like he knows what's going on. He's a great players coach. So hey, look, I'm might be doing it like this. I'm gonna sit back and stay on the assistant coach's side and not go into a situation where I'm not ready or I won't think would be best for me.
That's fair.
Or it could be teams are looking him over because he definitely is overqualified to be a head coach. And no disrespect to JJ Redick, but
it ain't close.
That could be
let's not
be Sam Cassell.
Let's not kid ourselves. It ain't close.
You never know, man. You never know. It's always it's politics everywhere. It starts in high school when you really don't pay attention to it, and it just gets worse with the politics from there. So you really never know what's going on, but you just always support them and hopefully he gets everything he wants and deserves, for sure.
I appreciate that, and you're right. Like if it's Sam telling, hey, you don't even bother calling. Like he has every right to say, don't even bother making the call. That ain't the place for him.
You never know what anybody got going on these days.
But if it's the
supportive, be happy for him.
If it's the other way, it's shameful, man. That dude more than deserves.
And that's it. That's the life of the NBA, man. Yeah. It's a business. It's a real business out there.
I know you know that. Donté Green.
For sure.
Obviously, this Saturday, the Big 3 at CFG Bank Arena. Is there anything else we can plug for you, man?
Nah, man. Everybody come down CFG Arena. I believe the games start at 1 o'clock.
Yep.
12 or 1 o'clock. We'll just say 12. Doors will definitely be open. So everybody come down, check us out. My game is at 4 p.m. So, make sure you guys stick around. Other Baltimore guys, DeJuan Summers, Henry Sims, Roscoe Smith. So we got Baltimore guys in the city. Come out and support. And
man, we're so excited for you that you're able to come back, play at home, man. It's just awesome. Donté Green, always appreciate you. Thank you for spending time with us this morning, dude. We really appreciate it.
Always, man. Appreciate you, my guy.
Donté Green with us here on GCR. It's gonna be a great day. It's gonna be a great day. We want these types of events. I get it. This is the thing that we do in this city all the time. I wish we had an NBA team. I wish we had an NHL team. I got bad news. That's not happening.
Why not?
Lots of reasons. We can go over many of them if you really want me to, but I can just shorten it, say it's not happening. But there are very cool events that do happen in Baltimore, and there are things that really do matter in our city. And this is going to bring basketball legends. Our city, you're going to go out somewhere on Friday night, and Rick Barry and Nancy Lieberman and Lisa Leslie and Charles Oakley and Dr. J and ISO Joe Johnson might all be like at dinner somewhere. Like we want this type of stuff in our city. It's the thing that I always say. I'm not a golf fan, but I want more golf events in Baltimore. I went. I supported it. It's not my thing. I don't care at all. But I want it. I want this city to have big events. I want there to be more tourism dollars spent in Maryland. And, I'm not trying to pretend like the Big Three is like the World Cup or, an NCAA tournament or anything along those lines. But I want more events. So I try to support all of them that I can. And we'll try to catch up with some more folks involved during the course of the week. When we come back in, we'll get a tidbit, we'll get tubular, and we will wind things down for a Tuesday edition of GCR. Hey, O's fans, gift the experience of Orioles baseball with an Orioles e-gift card. An Orioles e-gift card is the perfect gift for any occasion and can be purchased starting as little as $5. Use e-gift cards to buy game tickets at the box office and online at Orioles.com. Plus, e-gift cards can be redeemed at any concession stand or merchandise location throughout Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Surprise your favorite Orioles fan with an e-gift card today. Visit Orioles.com/gift cards.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hagerstown, Maryland, a snapshot of American history that dates back centuries. Today, the roots of the city expand with another historical moment, the grand opening of Meredith Park, Hagerstown's new event stadium and home to the Atlantic League Flying Boxcars. Experience the energy, culture, and adventure. Plan your getaway today at America's newest and most innovative ballpark. You're welcome in Hagerstown, Maryland. Visit Hagerstown.com.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
The Ed Block Courage Award Foundation has been working in partnership with the NFL for 46 years to support abused, neglected, and at-risk youth across the country, partnering each team with a children's facility or program that supports the well-being of those in need. Annually, one player from each team is selected by their peers to receive the Courage Award for their inspiration on and off the field. Learn more about how the Ed Block Courage Award Foundation makes a difference, and be sure to check out their latest podcast and web series episodes at edblock.org.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right, back here on GC. I've been following along. The Baltimore Banner has reporters embedded with Katie Pumphrey, the swimmer who is trying to swim across the harbor today. Apparently, she is expected to arrive at the amphitheater somewhere in the afternoon hours. She started at like 3. By the way, I don't care what water you're swimming in. Swimming for 12 consecutive hours is badass to me. Like, I'm exhausted after a few laps. I've never really done, like, swimming as a hardcore workout. I was never on a swim team or anything like that. But, like, one of the times I was trying to get into shape in my life, I remember doing some swimming workouts, and just after, like, the 4th lap, just like, ugh. The mental health side of it, too, because I've said this before. I can't, if I get to the gym and I realize for whatever reason that, like, I forgot my earbuds, I do not go inside. Like, the mental health side of it, I have to have something. Music, a movie, a TV, like something, live sports, something to accompany me. Because if it's just me and my thoughts, like, not good. So, man, God bless her. It's incredible trying to raise attention for continuing to get clean waterways. Of course, we had Harbor Splash over the weekend, and you know, I get everybody saying it couldn't be me. I've made jokes like I wouldn't want to, but like I would because, as I said before, I've done Glenn Clark. I've done way worse things. Definitely could not be me swimming for 12 hours today. Like, that definitely could not be me. There's no chance. So good on Katie Pumphrey who's trying to do that today. It's an incredible thing. I feel like we've covered just about everything that we needed to cover today.
It's the College World Series, right?
Yeah, I talked about that briefly.
Yeah,
I mean,
right. Yeah.
I do need to remind everybody that the print issue of Press Box is still available.
Ooh.
Wherever it is that you find Press Box around town, including your neighborhood Royal Farms. On the cover, you see Governor Wes Moore talk to the governor about sports. We did not turn this into a political discussion, but we did discuss, because that's not what we do here. We do sports. We talked about the leases. We talked about horse racing. We talked about his own athletic career at Johns Hopkins, how that shaped him as a leader, all of those things. And you can read all about that at PressBoxOnline.com, or you can go to PressBoxOnline. I said we can go to PressBoxOnline.com, where you can go pick up a print issue of Press Box.
Did
today.
You see the? Right?
Yes.
Yeah. The Mount Rushmore that people were getting.
I saw Rita was.
Yeah.
It was. I don't know if we'll talk about it. I don't care about this topic. I just don't. You will never get me to care about this topic, and that's by the way.
It should be Joe Flacco.
No, to Rita's credit, that's why like her greater point isn't really about fighting about Joe Flacco. It's subjective. Who gives a flying F? Like, we're pretending like this matters in some way. Like, and this is, in a way, it's been one of the good. This used to be thought of as legitimate content. And we might have done a week about this on the radio 12 years ago. It's nonsense. It's utter and complete nonsense. I will give the guys from Part of My Take credit for, like, when they started doing their Mount Rushmore stuff, they were calling it out for being the nonsense that it was. It's utter nonsense. I stopped, by the way, a long time ago, the 15. That's one of the features inside every month's issue of Press Box. On page 15, you can find the 15. And once upon a time, like, the 15 was supposed to be like a ranking or something along those lines. And then when I took it over, I said, that's nonsense. Like, imagine putting out, like, and thinking that it mattered. Thinking that any one of, it's just, hey, here's my opinion about something. So instead, I try to use the 15 either for fun or for information. Like, for this month, we did an Olympic thing, because I don't know if you've heard the Olympics are coming up. And I went over the history of Baltimoreans that have won Olympic medals, summer Olympic medals. And there's more than 15 of them. So I had to find another way that I could. And so I, put it in by sport in order to list them by 15. Something that has some sort of value other than, imagine if I tried to say, here are the 15 greatest Baltimore Olympians. The F value does that have?
Katie how do you say her name?
Zafaris. Unfortunately, did not make the team this year in triathlon. So will not be trying to go back and win a gold, which is a real bummer because she's awesome. But
Carroll County native.
Yes, correct. Much like Kyle Snyder. This is not, as I said before, this is not a Baltimore Summer Olympics. We'll see Donnell Wittenberg.
Maybe one day I'll make the Olympics.
In dodgeball, when they make it a sport, we'll find out. Donnell Wittenberg still has a chance.
I'll be on team
to
Israel
make,
or something.
Is that? Oh, okay. That's what they do for the World Baseball Classic. If you have any connection, anybody who is ever in your family. Well, my great grandfather.
Let's go that far, but
Donnell Wittenberg still has a chance to make the gymnastics team, but it's not an Olympics for Baltimore athletes this time around. Chase Kalish is on the swim team. That's the thing. He's back, so a Harford County guy, as we mentioned. Kyle Snyder from Carroll County is back on the Olympic team. It's just not. This ain't a Baltimore Olympics, man. It just ain't.
So we won't watch.
Some Marylanders, but more from the D.C. suburbs, or like Aaron Brooks who's from out west. Not just no way around it. Matt Centrowitz isn't even in this year. Katie Zafaris, who I mentioned, is not in. It is who was the girl that was on the rugby team last time around that was from Harford County, whose name has totally escaped me, and she was.
Is she in there?
No, because they didn't win a medal. Oh God, this is gonna drag. Abby Gustitis from North Hartford, not on the rugby team this time around. Just not a lot of Baltimore connections. And look, we're still trying to catch up with. We've been talking to some of the former Terps, things like that. It's just slim pickings this time around. But yes, that was the idea. And the Mount Rushmore thing is nonsense content, and that's what. And I guess we'll talk about it on the radio show tonight. I don't want to, but Rita got so much, traction with it yesterday that I feel like, because her point is sort of like, who gives a flying F what my opinion is? It's my opinion.
But Joe Flacco's for you.
Her opinion is that I don't even know who started this. Who made their
NFL Throwback? I think made the
whatever
graphic.
That is, and it was like Lamar, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, and Ogden.
So who's yours?
Who gives a flying F? And her,
I do.
I
do. I want to know.
Drew and I used to do a topic. It was called we used to do on the 7 on Tuesdays. It was like we would take anything and rank our top 7, and that was how we would try to start a fight. This is when the Orioles were bad and there was nothing to talk about in the summer, and so we had to.
It's not a bad 7.
We had to do
contrive.
Like
4 hours on that.
Yeah, we absolutely. And I still have people that see me and bring up some innocuous. I'm like, dude,
I can't believe you had this 5th. And
our friend Mike Gathigan, who works over at Towson now, still wants to fight me about my list of Baltimore basketball players. I'm like, Mike, it ain't that deep. I love you.
Got good points.
It's just not that deep.
I listen to Mike when it comes to basketball.
Yeah, all right. So, but we did one day outside, because the 3 were it was Ray, Ed, and Ogden at that point in their careers, whatever year this was, had clearly separated themselves as being the 3 greatest players in Ravens history. So the 7 was who else would be in the top 10. What our 7 topic for that week was who would be 4 through 10, because we're accepting those 3 as being separated. And oh my God, it generated such nonsense. None. And you got to remember, this was very early in.
But you were right. You could do a week on this. How is this?
God, it was. But none of it matters.
Well, yeah, because the Orioles aren't good.
Yeah, that was what it was. The Orioles weren't good, and so we had nothing. What we're going to talk about? Luis Matos. No thanks. I'll pass.
All right, then what were we going to talk about?
Eugene Kingsale, Felix P.A. Go right at Garrett Atkins. And I break down the Garrett Atkins diet. So I remember us doing that at this point. And the Rita said she would put Joe Flacco on the thing over Lamar Jackson, and
as he should.
I wouldn't, right? But that's Rita's real point, is that it doesn't matter, and that's imagine being angry that that's her opinion. Her opinion is based on Joe won a Super Bowl and Lamar hasn't, right? Like, okay. Like, if we just were ranking the 4 Ravens that were most responsible for them winning Super Bowls, then Ed Reed wouldn't be on Mount Rushmore. Now, I get it. He did win one. He was on a team that won a Super Bowl, but he was a shell of himself at that point in his career.
Did he get an interception?
In the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Don't think so. Do I not? Am I misremembering something? I don't. Maybe I'm.
Maybe I'm making it up.
I don't remember that being a thing.
Colin Kaepernick makes a mistake we haven't seen since his first possession of the postseason.
Yeah, he's been pretty good with the football, Rich. I mean,
terrible
right here, that
that was what it was. All right, maybe that's why I don't remember. Maybe that's why I don't remember. So Andrew was just waiting that. All right, maybe.
I'm glad I remember that.
Yeah, good for you. You pulled one that I didn't remember. God, how about that?
He overthrew the guy. I don't know who he was even aiming for. He missed him by 25 yards.
I mean, that was the only interception in the game. Why did I think? I don't know. Anyway,
because I remember like leading up to the Super Bowl, they were doing like Madden simulations,
right.
and like in one of the simulations, Ed Reed ended the game on an interception. So I couldn't remember if like I was.
You just put that into your brain.
Yeah.
All right. The moral of the story, of
But
course, being that like if you were doing the bid on like who are the players most responsible for them winning Super Bowls, it would be Joe Flacco, Anquan Bolden for the like they were the two. That's how they won their second
Reed,
Super Bowl.
obviously.
No, it would be Ray Lewis, and I don't even know who would be the second player that you put on because like.
No.
What's that?
McCrary? Boulware?
No, Boulware would probably be the best argument, although God. Like that's like, I would listen to an argument for Tony Siragusa. Hell, I would listen to an argument
for him being on the like
if you only base it around who was most responsible for them winning Super Bowls, right? Like if you're Mount Rushmore, if you said, I care about how they won Super Bowls, I would only put the players on that were most responsible for them winning Super Bowls. 3 of them would be obvious. I don't know who the second player would be from the first Super Bowl team. I would make an argument for Jamal Lewis, honestly, just because he was the entirety of their offense. If you wanted to argue for Matt Stover from that year, I would listen to that argument. Like,
but is Tucker on the Mount Rushmore?
But like, this is what makes this so stupid. Like, we do this stupid Mount Rushmore thing like it's a thing. I don't know. I still think at this point that Ray Lewis is the greatest player in franchise history, but I think Lamar Jackson's closing on that. I do. And part of that is the value of the quarterback position. I do acknowledge that. But it doesn't matter. And that's the point. And that's what I appreciate about what Rita was saying when people were trying to fight with her yesterday is like, why do you care? Like, I'm not even trying to tell you that I'm right. I'm not fighting with you. I'm saying that I have an opinion. So if you said, Glenn, what would your opinion? Who are the 4 greatest players in Ravens history? Like Lewis, Reed, Ogden, Jackson probably would be my 4. But I would listen. Like the difference between Suggs and Jackson would be like I would struggle with that. Right?
So you
like,
had both of them ahead of Flacco.
Flacco wouldn't. I don't know when Flacco would come into the conversation.
I mean,
if I did this really, oh God, I hate you for the fact that you're dragging me into this bull S. You know, there's soccer going on right now that we could be watching.
Yeah, right.
Lewis, Reed,
you want me to turn it on?
Ogden.
We can only watch one of the games.
Jackson, Suggs,
McAllister,
Yonda,
Corey Ivy.
Yeah, correct. Corey Ivy, Frank Walker. So like those 6 to me would be 7 because I'll put Tucker in that group too, right? If you include kickers and you have to put Tucker in that conversation, so there'd be 7 there.
That would put Goose like in your like
no, just
all time.
I mean, like he'd be somewhere. I don't know where he would come in, but those 7 would be separated for me, and it would be debate between those 7, right?
Was Flacco in that 7?
No, Flacco was not in that 7. After that, Jamal Lewis. Jamal Lewis to me is the line of demarcation for like. He's the closest to being in that group that's just not quite in that group.
If he didn't go to the Browns.
It's not even – I don't care. Boy, you almost got a second S word out of me today. I don't give an S that Jamal Lewis played for the Browns. It's that he – like his career, kind of tailed off after
–
he
was
was
running back.
Yes, he was on as good as any modern running back pace for his career at that point, and was the entirety of the Ravens offense for a generation. Jamal Lewis, to me, I want to have him over some of the guys in the top 7 because that's how great Jamal Lewis was to me. But realistically, I would say like he's 8th, and then there's another separation for me to the next group of guys. And that's where you could, like after those 8, we could talk about Heap, Stover. Oh, Nada would be ahead of that. I take that back. Nada would be definitively 9th.
Okay.
So there's my top 9.
Yeah,
Nada would be 9th. Then who would also crack the top 10? Maybe that's where I would, give Joe Flacco the hey, we're the quarterback that led him to a Super Bowl, so I'll let you be 10 for the sake of if I was doing this stupid bit, for the sake of it, I would do that. But is that the correct answer?
No. It's not. We know that.
It's just an opinion. But Flacco, Heap, Stover, you could say Mark Andrews is in that conversation now.
Wow. Earl Thomas.
McAllister, obviously Boulware. McCrary, we desperately wanted guys to go into the Ring of Honor, because we just were trying to establish history. McCrary is very flimsy to me in that group. He had some really good seasons. I'm not trying to pretend like he wasn't a really good player while he was here. And every time I have this conversation, I remind myself that it was for longer than I think that it was for. In my mind, McCrary had 4 good years. And I go back and I'm like, well, maybe he had 5 good years. Actually, it really was only 3 good years. But he still had 6.5 sacks, 7.5 sacks in the 2 down
Super
years.
Bowl.
And he did win a Super Bowl, right? And he was a contributor to a Super Bowl team. But so was Rod Woodson, and so was
Netherlands let up an own goal.
Oh,
5 minutes in.
Oh, my. See? And you did this to me, you son of a bitch. You feel good about yourself?
Well, I mean, I didn't want to see this, so.
You feel good about yourself? Jimmy Smith would be in this conversation.
Oh, my God. It was terrible. Jeez.
Derek Mason.
Jimmy Smith. Okay.
Derek Mason.
Yeah.
Siragusa.
Torrey?
He'd be on the fringe of it. He wouldn't be. That's the tricky part is that, you might actually look at Torrey's career and say Torrey had a better career than Anquan Boldin, but because Anquan Boldin, won them a Super Bowl, you'd struggle to put Torrey ahead of Anquan Boldin. I would put Mason's the greatest receiver in Ravens history. Boldin to me would be 2, then Torrey, then Kadri. It's where you realize how thin the list is.
Jacoby Jones.
Well,
I guess not necessarily as a receiver.
Yeah, right. But people
player.
forget how impactful he was as a receiver for a minute. And then you get to Steve Smith. That's how sad it is. You would get to Steve Smith after a little bit. But yes, everybody after that. To me, there's 9.
Pitta.
Pitta would be somewhere. We remember Pitta more fondly than his actual career justified, but he'd be somewhere in that conversation. Dalius would absolutely be in that conversation. Kelly Gregg would be in that conversation.
I love Kelly Gregg.
Sam Cook would be in that conversation. If you're going to put kickers in, you have to consider punters.
Anthony Levine.
No, but he'd be in the top 50 somewhere probably, just because of longevity and all that. I don't know. I hate that you engaged me on this. I hate that I'd spent as much time. Marlon would be in that conversation at this point. He would be. He's spent enough time as a high-level player.
We never talked about Patrick Queen and Marlon Humphrey.
I don't care. I don't.
Well, we'll see if you care. Let's
yeah.
Let's
I
keep
hate
talking
you.
about
I hate you for this. Really hate you for this. Patrick Queen is playing in Pittsburgh now. What do you think he's gonna say? Come on,
Baltimore's
guys.
Better, as he should say.
What is wrong with you? That's it. That's all you got out of me for that.
Better. Is
yes, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But there's a difference between us having a conversation about it and then us recognizing that that's who he plays for. Imagine if he showed up in Pittsburgh. He's like, dude, Baltimore's so much better than this. What is wrong? You're the dumbest humans alive. If you think there's anything wrong with what Patrick Queen said, given the circumstances. But if you actually wanted to have a debate about the food between Baltimore and Pittsburgh, get the F out. They think that putting potato chips on a sandwich is a culinary creation. They offer nothing to the conversation. Come on. What if we took this sandwich and we put... It's like a Nikki Glaser talking about Bert Kreischer's joke. Shirts are supposed to say on. He takes his off.
And it's hilarious.
It's that's wow. So you could have a sandwich and French fries, But you say French fries on the sandwich. I hope we're not trying to sell advertising.
And for some reason, whenever I'm in Pittsburgh, I feel like I got to have one.
Because there's nothing else. Because that's it. Because if you weren't having that, you would... Wait, somebody said, I want to have an authentic Pittsburgh culinary experience. Well, we've done nothing, and we're all out of options. Like, there's nothing. This is Google results, no results found. So, yeah, you go have a stupid stacker sandwich because that's it. List of things. And they're awful piss beer.
Iron City's not bad.
No, it's
Well, I mean,
not.
it's not
There is
significantly worse than any other.
It's just beer. That's it. It is, again, offering nothing to the conversation. It's just the beer we have. That's what it is. God.
Yeah,
Again,
Natty
Pittsburgh
Bo's better, but
yeah, Natty Bo's not offering anything to the conversation either, Chief. Like, we ain't winning that one. Fairness, everybody's got their own beers now. Like, it's just that city's beer. The moral of the story, of course, being there's no conversation to be had, but Patrick Queen plays for the Steelers. If he played for the Ravens, you know what he would say? Baltimore's amazing! But he doesn't anymore. Get to the stupid. Would you hit play on the thing, please?
Have you ever thought of taking a cruise to these wonderful destinations with sunny skies and beautiful beaches? Well, wait no longer. We're ready for you to cruise from the Cruise Maryland Terminal.
Have a little phrase that you can go from baggage to margarita in about 15 minutes.
Choose fun with an array of destinations, onboard activities, entertainment, and world-class cuisine.
Contact your travel agent and book your cruise today. Let your adventure begin.
There is a place
coming up. Oh no, we're doing tidbit first. What you got for tidbit?
Tidbit-wise, we are going starting. Oh yeah, so hockey. Connor McDavid. He has 134 assists in the season across postseason, regular season. It is the 10th time in NHL history that a skater has recorded at least 125 assists in a single season. How many of the other 9 can you name?
Wayne Gretzky.
Correct. You're done. You got it. He's done
All
all their 9 are Wayne Gretzky.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. The Panthers have become they actually have the lowest goal differential, -5 of any Stanley Cup champion, and become just the 5th team in NHL history to win the Cup, despite having a negative goal differential in the Stanley Cup Finals.
How about that? Well, they lost one game 8-1. That really kind of skewed things.
The Blues in 2018 had a -4.
You're no chance I could name another one.
The Pens in 2008.
I do know some of the losing Team Conn Smythe winners because I did see that going around last night. After
there was one goalie.
Most of them were goalies. There was only one other skater. The last 2 were both goalies. It was Jaguar and Ron Hextall.
Yeah. I did not see those, so I would have had no shots.
Yeah.
I have one. Yeah, we'll do this one. 10 years ago today, Tim Lincecum tossed his second no-hitter, and he is one of 3 pitchers to no-hit the same team twice, as he no-hit the Padres twice.
There's one other pitcher. There's
2 others.
2 other pitchers that have no-hit the same
team
twice. Wow. I mean, Nolan Ryan threw a lot of no-hitters, so I guess I should just guess Nolan Ryan.
Not Nolan Ryan.
Okay. Tim Lincecum.
Well, yes.
And Don Larson.
No, not Don Larson.
And my God. Roy Halladay.
Not Roy Halladay.
Justin Verlander.
Justin Verlander has 2.
Oh, really?
Yes, does have 2 no-hitters against the same team. And then the other...
I'm struggling with guys that have even thrown no-hitters.
Very old-timey ball player.
Christy Mathewson.
No, he's one that I don't think he's a name that we would typically guess. He was a Cleveland...
Walter Johnson.
Broncho Knapp? Is that what they were called? The Bronchos?
Oh, I don't know. Who is it?
It is Addy Joss.
Oh, Addy Joss. We could have been here for a long
Addy
time.
Joss, Verlander, and Tim.
I was really hoping it was Dizzy Dean.
Yeah. And then I did have one more. JJ Redick obviously hired and Kenny Atkinson yesterday.
That's right. Former
but,
Warriors assistant Kenny Atkinson.
Yes.
He's so the only opening now is Detroit.
Yes, Detroit.
And everybody thinks that's going to be.
It was one of the guys I was in running for the Cleveland job.
Oh God, yes, correct. And Borrego.
Yes.
Borrego.
Yeah, I think that's what everyone thinks. But
Yeah.
who knows? Who knows? I guess everyone knew it was going to be Redick. However,
They did a bit in the press conference yesterday where Rob Pelinka was like, he was always Plan A, and everybody's just like, dude, like, are you trying to pretend like we don't know that you were attempting to hire? Like, what? What are you saying? You attempted to hire Dan Hurley. We all know that. But like, that's what.
Are we sure Dan Hurley to just make all that up? You know,
Yeah,
fire up
the whole thing was fake. And that was the thing, is like my buddy Aaron Oster was ranting about it on Twitter, and I was like, look, man, this is the era that we live in. Like, we just gaslight. Like, who's gonna call him on it? He's like, I'm the GM of the Lakers. I don't care what you think. I'm going to lie.
They should have just made LeBron the head coach.
They also did that bit during the press conference, like, well, LeBron really wasn't involved with the process.
You think they're just lying straight through their teeth, all presser?
Believe it or not. That's what I think.
Anyway, there are. My brother pointed this out to me. Obviously, as the coaching carousel continues in the NBA, there are only 5 coaches that have coached their same team since before the pandemic. Can you name?
I can't believe there's that many.
That seems like a lot to you.
Yeah, Pop, obviously.
Greg Popovich, the longest tenured.
Steve Kerr.
Steve Kerr, the 3rd longest tenured.
3rd longest tenured?
He was hired in 2014. There was someone hired in 2008.
Somebody hired in 2008 that's still the coach. Spoelstra. Yes. Yeah, what am I doing? My bad.
Spoelstra.
My bad. My fault.
Pop, Spoelstra, Kerr, and then 2 more.
Malone?
Michael Malone, 2015. And then in June of 2019.
Yuck.
I don't think I'm trying to think if you'll get this on your own. He is the Memphis Grizzlies coach.
Oh, Jenkins.
Taylor Jenkins. Yeah. Yes, that is correct.
I was a big David Fizdale guy. I love that guy, and I thought he got the. That's hilarious though. But I'm not. I say that I'm also not surprised because like immediately I said, well, I can think of a couple. That's about it. That's about it. You win a championship now. That gets you like 2 years.
Can you name all the new head coaches?
This coaching cycle?
Yeah.
No chance. I mean, Budenholzer in Phoenix.
Yep.
2
yesterday. Where
yeah. The guy. Yeah. Atkinson and JJ Redick.
You're the Wizards' new coaches.
I
would not have known.
Not a chance in hell.
Brian Keefe.
Who is that?
Brian Keefe was formerly a Nets assistant. He was actually an assistant in Washington this past season.
If you say so. Did he take over when they fired Unseld? Was he the coach? Because didn't Unseld get fired during the season?
He was. Yeah, he was the interim coach.
Okay.
Gosh, they really loved what they saw, I guess.
Yeah. I don't even know who else hired coaches, to be honest with you.
The Hornets' new coach.
Sure.
Charles Lee.
I don't know who that is.
Nets head coach. Jordy Fernandez.
Who is that?
And then hired midway through the season, the Bucks' new coach.
I don't even remember who it was.
Doc Rivers.
Oh, right. Yeah, my bad. Damn it, I should have known that.
And then Detroit's still vacant.
Jesus.
So
there you go. All right. I'm really mad that you made this show that could have been over 30 minutes ago. Goes like, you are a dick.
Well, there was stuff we didn't talk about.
No. Get the other thing.
There is a place where tradition, family, and community gather, where the aspirations of talented young competitors takes root, and where the crossroads of history, culture, and renewal come together. This spring, experience America's newest and most innovative ballpark, Meritus Park in Hagerstown, Maryland, home of the Atlantic League Flying Boxcars. Plan your getaway today. You're welcome in Hagerstown, Maryland.
All right, here's what's coming up tonight, totally tubular-wise. The Orioles try again to snap their losing streak, now up to 4 games. Guardians-Orioles, 6:35 on Masson. Logan Allen, Cole Irvin, the pitching matchup. Euro games right now, France, Poland, scoreless. That's on Fox, and Austria with a 1-0 lead over the Netherlands. That's on FS1. This afternoon.
What are we doing, lads?
Wankers. Yeah. This afternoon. What was I watching recently? John Oliver did a John Oliver this week. His show was all about the British Prime Minister election, and he was talking about the way that they used certain
insults or
yes, like where you're like you have to understand. So like the C word, he's like, in Britain, it's not about women. Everyone's I'm not going to say it, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
You're using it in the British accent.
Yeah, right. That's a great point. Speaking of the Brits, they play Slovenia at 3 on Fox, and then Denmark plays Serbia at 3 on FS1. Copa tonight.
Go Serbia and Slovenia.
There you go. That's.
Since Netherlands isn't going to win anything, apparently.
Tonight, the Copa on FS1, Peru and Canada. Could really use a Canada victory, your boy. That's at 6 o'clock. And then Chile, Argentina at 9 o'clock. Nationals, Padres, 9:40 on MASN 2 and ESPN+. TBS has Yankees, Mets. That's nice that the New York teams finally get a little attention. Tonight at 7:10. MLB Network, Cubs, Giants at 9:30. MLB TV, Athletics, Angels at 9:38. The legendary WNBA Commissioner's Cup. Maybe we had it all wrong. Maybe the Lakers don't play the Celtics. Maybe they play the winner of this. That might be what it is.
The Sparks.
Minnesota Lynx, New York Liberty tonight at 8 o'clock in the Commissioner's Cup Championship on Amazon Prime Video. ESPN for a new episode of The Ultimate Fighter tonight at 10, and the USA Network for WWE NXT at 8. Non-sports?
Just a few. The CMA Fest.
This is not the CMA Awards.
Yeah,
this is another thing.
Yes, hosted by Jelly Roll and Ashley McBride.
Weren't they in the? Didn't they do an I'm Not Rappaport thing?
Did they?
Didn't they tour that?
Jelly Roll will be on Kimmel, but not with Kimmel, but with Martin Short afterwards.
Sure.
This is all on ABC. So you can just go ahead and turn on ABC and forget it.
Boy, if there the list of things in pop culture right now that like just are not for me. Like even Post Malone, like I said, I at least like a song or two. Like he's not for me, but like I got nothing on Jelly Roll. Zip.
He seems like a nice guy, cool guy.
Seems like a good enough guy, but man, every time I hear a song, I'm like, nope.
We love Drew Barrymore. She'll be on Fallon along with Peso Pluma.
Who's Peso Pluma?
He's a Latin artist. He's pretty good. He's pretty
all
good.
right.
I enjoy him. New episode of The Acolyte. Penultimate episode of Clipped. And then a few documentaries. Diane von Furstenberg has a documentary on Hulu as well. I Am Celine Dion, Prime Video documentary.
Yeah.
And then I think this is a book clubber on Peacock, TikTok Star Murders documentary.
Interesting.
It is about this guy named Ali. He did like a bunch of TikTok videos. I think it was like back in 2019. And then he wanted his wife Anna to like focus make his TikTok like the number one priority as well. And then anyway, he has a lot of issues and he got like abusive and stuff. And I won't spoil anything, but you should watch it.
I watched the Roger Federer Amazon documentary. It was disappointing because you didn't realize it was only about him announcing his retirement.
Like that week or whatever.
Yeah. And like no one gives a rat's ass about the Laver Cup. Like they were still like it was still worth the watch, but I was really hoping that it would like use those last 12 days to revisit more of his past career and spend more time. It didn't. Like a little bit on some of his rivalries, like with Murray and Nadal, and Djokovic.
So you should go make your own, make a better one.
It was a bummer. It was a real bummer, man. I'm like, okay, glad we did that, so I could see how he put out a press release. Cool. Thanks today to Donté Green. Thanks also to Anthony Castrovince as well as to Jon Meoli. We'll get all of it up in the greatest hits section of the
Oh my God, it's so good.
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Tomorrow, anything?
Stephanie Apstein will join us.
From SI. She wrote about the Orioles recently.
Yeah.
Adam Newman, who's vice president of the Baltimore Ravens, will be stopping by the studio tomorrow.
Okay.
We'll have some things to talk about with Adam Newman. Stuff and things.
All right.
Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Visit Hagerstown in Washington County. Cruise Maryland, Guilford Hall Brewery, Royal Farms, Ed Block Courage Awards, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, Costas Inn, MSAA, the Baltimore Orioles, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com, and Ocean City as well. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Oh, it's a hot one today in Germany, huh? Hot one. They got to do hydration breaks, apparently. Have a great
professional athletes.
What are we doing, right? Tough up, Buttercup. Have a great Tuesday night. Go Birds. Duke sucks.